Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
10 minutes left. Yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name. That's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story. Let's take this thing off of the field into the real world, away from the numbers, away from the numbers.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. There's still time. The AFTN Soccer Show, broadcasting on CITR Radio 101.9 FM from the unceded Musqueam Territory at the University of beautiful British Columbia. I'm Michael McCall,
And I'm Zachary Adam Eisenheimer.
and we're back with another Pat show. A little bit upbeat, a little bit downbeat, but a lot to talk about, as always, as we're in the business end of the season in Major League Soccer, the Canadian Premier League, lots of other tasty little football morsels that we will talk about as well. And we'll bring you something we recorded last week as well about the men's national team that we had to cut due to the extreme lengths that our podcasts are. But before we get into all the football chat, how has your week been, Mr. Meisenheimer?
Another very, very full week. Lots going on in life and even some football, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you got out to a Fraser Valley game.
Yeah, that was good times. I saw Hildy and I saw Shambusho. Am I pronouncing it right?
Yeah.
Shambusho?
Two of my favourite players from the FVSL, I've got to say. They play for Abbotsford United, Conor Hildebrand, Little Hildy, a lot of time for him.
And him I knew from way, way back in the day because some students, I think, brought him to a couple of things that we did back in the day.
Never quite made the breakthrough at this semi-pro or higher level here. Did go over and play in Italy for a little bit. Victory Shambusho as well, actually, is another player that I thought was a shoo-in for CPL, but it's just never really worked out for him. His time at UBC was very heavily hit by injuries for a couple of the seasons, and I think that made folk a little bit wary. But he's a goal scorer. He knows how to score. And hopefully maybe this off-season, one of the BC teams will take a punt on him because they both need a little help in the scoring front.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Anything else you were up to this week?
Oh, Kirk turned 16.
Oh,
Just
sweet
give me
16.
You just gave me a look like you're not going to mention. So we got
Happy birthday.
Yeah, no, we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. I got his L, which is great. So he'll start his driving journey.
That sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
Knowing Kirk, I'm going nowhere near Abbotsford. I joke, Kirk. I know you're listening in the background. I half joke.
Yeah, you have joke. I got to play some board games with some of his buddies and then some family this weekend. And what else did we do? Watch the game, which was fun to watch. A little Abbotsford United, right? That's they just crushed VFC U19s, which that was disappointing, but
they are the top team in FVSL for the last couple of seasons. Very, very strong.
But good to see Todd May and you know who his assistant coaches are?
Jeevan's one of them, I believe.
He's not an assistant coach. He's involved in the program.
Actually,
I don't know.
I've seen who they are. I can't remember. One's a player.
There's a couple of players.
Oh, Nico is.
Yes. Yeah, Nico's
one of the assistants.
Yeah.
And I want to say Fisky.
No. Fisk works in the front office. Like he did in Calgary.
I know there's different. They have announced it. Like it's on the Fraser Valley site.
Caden Chung.
Caden, that was it. I knew it was a player.
Yeah, so it was good to be there. We got to say a few words to the players before the game, which was fun. And yeah, it was good.
And clearly worked.
Yeah, that's what I said to Todd after. I said that's why, that's the reason for
Yeah,
but Abbotsford was undefeated last year and is
yeah.
like the most significant opponent. The Abbotsford away that's the hardest game they have on their schedule. So
The purple-headed monsters.
yeah, there you go.
Hmm.
There you go. But it was fun. It was fun. It was cold. I was wearing like
Yeah,
4 layers and I was like cold.
I've been chilly up at UBC the last couple of nights. I mean, my week's been insane. I had 3 weeks. I had 3 days down the Oregon coast in a really flash trip down for the Portland game. I drove in to the Portland game from Cannon Beach, which I was like, do I want to go to Portland for the night and then go back to the coast? I was like, screw it. It'll be quiet. Going into the game, there was like heavy traffic going to the stadium, and my GPS said, save 13 minutes. I was like, okay. I have no idea where it took me, but I did get there in decent time. I was going through
Nice.
all the back roads of Hillsborough and Beaverton.
Did you
If
did
you'd
you have
asked me
media
to say what it was, I had no idea.
did you have that good media parking?
Yes,
Nice.
and right opposite the stadium, so that was good.
Yeah, that's very helpful there.
Yes, if I didn't have that, I was going to go do the park and ride and just get
The
the
train?
light rail in from
Yeah, yeah.
Beaverton. But that it was 3 days of that. Got back late on Thursday night. Then I was commentating up at UBC Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 4 games in the 3 days. Lots of goals, lots of action, penalty shootouts, penalty saves. Oh, wonderful stuff. Check my Twitter for some of the things that we've put out there. But yeah, it was a very, very busy week. And in this part, we're going to talk about the game I just mentioned there, which is the magnificent 5-0 win for the Whitecaps over Portland. Before we get into that, though, I want to give a little update. We were talking about the whole stadium debacle in last week's show. That game, of course, was meant
Oh
to be
yeah.
played at BC Place. The Whitecaps had earned the right to be the home team in the wild card, but they couldn't play it because of preparation for the Supercross. And it was put out there that Tuesday was available. And it didn't take much reading between the lines to know that MLS and or Apple had vetoed that. And then Axel Schuster did confirm on Monday that MLS and Apple had set many weeks ago that the Eastern game would be on the Tuesday and the Western game would be on the Wednesday, and they were not for switching that, which pisses me off a little bit. I don't know that they couldn't have just had them both on the Tuesday, but they wanted them both on separate days. They couldn't have had the Eastern game on the Wednesday, though, because they'd brought forward Inter Miami's game to the Friday as a standalone game to kick off the playoffs. So the Eastern game had to be on the Tuesday to give the winner of that 3 days rest, which again was just absolutely farcical. Axel also confirmed, though, what we were talking about and pondering about on the show last week, Zach, that they did look at neutral venues.
Yeah.
MLS said it had to be an MLS stadium. So the Whitecaps had one lined up, which I've got to say, I would feel is probably RSL because they were down there. But again, the league vetoed that because they wanted the game to be played in front of fans and they thought it would be a bad look if the playoff game was shown on Apple with hardly any fans in attendance, which kind of shows you where their priorities lie.
Yeah.
Not surprised, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it disgusts me, really.
Yeah. It's not great, but in the end, I think the way the things played out, it softened the blow.
Yes. And as I've said all along, I was worried about a playoff game at home anyway,
Yeah.
because they're a much better road team, even though they hadn't shown it. So let's get into that now, because, wow. For me, and I think most Whitecaps fans listening to this, if not all, maybe not all, this is the match of the year so far
Oh yeah.
for the Whitecaps, with some of the individual performances of the year, possibly the goal of the year, and one of the best defensive showings of the year. And I've got to say, I didn't see it coming. I went into this game with hope with some expectations, because as we talked about in last week's show, Zach, Portland were kind of stumbling into the playoffs as well. They were winless in 5, but we know how good they are at home, although they'd stuttered in their last 2 home games. I
Mhm.
saw the lineups. It was a very attack-minded lineup. All 3 DPs on there. You had White, Pico, Gold, and Armstrong all on the pitch. And you were like, well, this looks like a lineup the Whitecaps are going to go for it. And I thought they could get it done, but never in my wildest dreams did I see that it was going to be an absolute demolition job like that.
Yeah, no, it was I think your match of the season and one of the matches of the MLS era, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously it harkens back or maybe makes people think of the 5-0 thrashing of San Jose in that home again at the same stage, the home play-in wild card, whatever you want to call
Yes.
it, that home postseason victory over San Jose. It was reminiscent of that, but the performance was better. And I think the opposition was better, and being not playing at home was better. Yeah, what are you counting there?
I was counting how many
3
years we've been in
years?
MLS now, and it's 14. Because just you mentioned that San
Yeah.
Jose game, I'm like, 14 seasons, 2 playoff victories.
Well, okay. Why are you bringing things down? Like,
I know, it entered my head.
anyways, no, it was an incredible performance, and yeah, I think a really great way to like I said, kind of soften the blow of not
Mhm.
being able to, they had the 75 or whatever traveling fans.
Yeah, and it's like
Great.
full credit to the Whitecaps as well. They paid for the fans' bus, their tickets. It's hard to go down for a Cascadia derby midweek. There's been all these chats over the years that derby games shouldn't be played midweek. It's kind of forced upon when it's playoff time. But like full credit to the Whitecaps front office, they did everything they could to try and get as many fans down there as possible, and they had a good time.
Yeah,
They were
very much.
loud. They had their shirts off. They were flicking middle fingers to the Portland fans in front of the camera.
Yeah, it was classic. It was very classic Brett Graham to yeah, go topless after one of the goals or whatever in down in Cascadia.
Well, it was also
Brought back old
freezing down
memories.
there because Har and me up in the press box were complaining how cold it was. And the Portland people said, oh, there's a heater here. You can put the heater on. And then you see the coverage and Brett's there half naked. And it's like they breathed them hard.
Yeah, I feel good for him. I mean, he lives in Seattle now, and so he doesn't get
Yes.
to doesn't get to go to games the way he used to. Um, like he's a guy, I think we talked about this on the show before. He was a guy who would he didn't miss a game when he lived in Victoria, when he went to school in
Yeah,
Victoria.
he came over
He,
constantly to them.
he would fly, he would ferry, he would chopper, he would, I don't know,
Whim.
paraglide. I don't know what he got to like so many. He barely missed a game ever in that era. So I think when this game was announced, he was like, I think it was easier for him to get to.
Oh,
And
he was one of the first folk on the Facebook page going, who's going
yes,
down?
yeah, who's joining me? So really, yeah, really happy for him and those whatever the lot that made it down.
Yeah, 'cause it's been a
A
tough
great memorable
season.
day. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, Canadian Championship aside, it's been tough for all the fans, the hardcore, the casuals, those in between. There's been a lot of ups and downs. There's been a lot of bad PR that we talked about last week, and to have something like this, these are the kind of games, and we spoke about this before, that it can totally change some people's opinion of the season
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
because you're just on a high after that. And it's like everyone was buzzing. The fans were buzzing that I spoke to, like going down the players. We went down and blasting out of the locker room, which I thought was a strange choice, but Dancing Queen. Don't know who was in charge of the music that went with ABBA, but
yeah. That seems like a
Dancing
good
Queen was
choice.
the song that they went with. And it was a performance for the ages. And I did the pre-game show on the radio, and I don't know if they could hear me because it was getting loud as I was talking on the phone. I could hardly hear them. But I'd said I liked the lineup. It was aggressive, but for me, they had to go for it. They had to get the early breakthrough. I was looking for a goal in the first 10 minutes, and I felt if the Whitecaps could do that, and we spoke about that on the show last week, I'd have been a lot more comfortable. So it was a good start for the
Very good.
Whitecaps. They
Yeah.
took the game to Seattle. To Seattle. They took the game to Portland, thinking ahead of the semi-finals. They took the game to Portland, and they didn't get the breakthrough when I was wanting, but they did get the breakthrough in the 20th minute. And before we get to that, we talked about the Whitecaps lineup. Let's talk about the big Portland decision that was made. Maxime Crepeau,
Yeah.
not the starting keeper for this one. James Pantemis got the starting goal. He'd started the last 3 games of the regular season, and Phil Neville felt he was the informed keeper. Speaking to some of the Portland media, the feeling was Max hasn't had a great year. Much like what we said about Ali Ahmed, great while away with Canada,
Yeah.
but back with his club, hasn't been that strong. And that was the feeling for Max. And the feeling was that James had earned the chance to start this one. But he didn't cover himself in glory. He did on this first goal. He had a couple of big saves. Pico had a chance that was blocked. Blackman spun, had a shot. The rebound fell to Gold, and he eventually puts it away off Bravo on the line. But the Portland defending was horrific. They had 4 chances to clear the corner that came in, and they just were unable to clear it.
I understand the decision by Neville to stay with the keeper who, was there, didn't leave for national team duty, didn't miss anything, didn't miss any training, and whatnot. And then also to say, yeah, maybe his form for the club has been better than Max. I totally understand that. But as much as it is an interesting talking point after the game, Michael, and as much as I respect both Pantemis and Crepeau, I don't know that Crepeau makes a difference in that game either. You know what I mean? Like he's had some amazing games, but I don't know that
There's one goal I think he would have been
okay,
better on.
sure, but that's like that's 1 out of 5. Like
Yeah.
I think all
I don't think it was going to make a big difference.
I don't doesn't make a big difference, and for me ultimately it doesn't change the result, right? So if you're a Portland fan, you're more sour over that decision, but I don't like it logically makes sense in multiple ways. And so I don't know if you can really totally fault Neville for that, if you will. And I don't think the alternative would have swung things in their favor. Like the Whitecaps just like kind of played out of their skin. Like it was like, yeah, they played like they never have before.
But the thing is, they played like a team whose season was on the line, which it was.
Yes.
But so was Portland's, and we'll come to Neville's post-game comments, but they played far. They played like a team that was already thinking about where they were going to be golfing next week.
Yeah, that's fair.
They just did not seem clued in, where the Whitecaps were laser focused. So the opener came in the 20th minute from Goldie, and then 24 minutes, 4 minutes after that, it's 2-0. This goal, some beautiful stuff to talk about. The ball comes in from Ryan Gold, and the first thing I want to talk about, there's 3 Whitecaps players in the box, and this isn't a breakaway. This is just the game going on. 3 Whitecaps players in the box. Brian White that gets the goal. Matthias Laborda and Ranko Veselinovic.
Yeah.
That's how confident the Whitecaps were at this point. They had 2 of their back 4 in the box. Insane to me. But the skill shown by Laborda on this, the control, flicking it up, chesting it down, cutting it back, and the turn and shot from Brian White. Beautiful goal.
Yeah. You just feel their confidence. You were just like, they were so up for this. Like I think I don't know how much a sense you have this. I think this whole not being able to play at home also like spurred them on.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think that gave them a kick. It's like we want to have one more home game for our fans, so the only way we can do that is by winning this.
Yeah.
And kind of maybe feeling a little bit hard done by just in general by stuff. Because it must be hard for a player. You've worked so hard. You've fallen out the top 7. which is devastating enough, but you've earned a home playoff game, but you can't play it at home. I mean,
Yeah,
that is kind of stuff that just drives you.
totally. And
And
and if you think
the,
that if you think the second goal was a great goal, Michael.
yes, the third one is going to be up here for my goal of the year. And this is the one that I think Max would have done better on, I've got to say.
Yeah, that's maybe fair.
So 31 minutes gone. Before we get to that, actually, when I went to 1-0, I'm in the press box and I was like, yes, get in. And Nathan's like, remember, no cheering in the press box. And I was like, eh. And then I didn't for the rest. But when the second one went in, we both kind of looked at each other like, oh my God, what's going on here? And then the third one went in and we're both like, oh, this is happening. It was an incredible first 31 minutes. And this goal starts with Goldie not giving up on a back pass, chasing it down.
Mhm.
And Temis, I feel, could have come off his line a bit quicker. That hesitation cost him. So Gold gets it, cuts it back. Armstrong's involved, Vita's involved. It gets played out. Armstrong, a lovely little lob into the path of Gold. And his control and lob finish here. Now, he saw Pantemis was off his line. This is why I think Max would maybe have got back on his line. But an absolutely sublime finish.
Yeah, the way he uses, I think, his inside of his left foot just to lob it over him is so quality, and just an eye for goal that you want from that player who's supposed to also be the playmaker in your team, but you want them to be able to score. And it was reminiscent of a number of other diminutive type players who play in that position.
Yes. Yes. You could almost compare him to one of those.
Or multiple of them.
Just maybe with a Scottish
Twist.
flair put in, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was 3-0 at half time. I mean, the one thing I would say, and this is what annoyed Vanny, he felt after they went 3-0 up, they kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit, and they kind of almost let Portland get back into it. The problem was
Portland was too horrible.
Evander had a couple of long-range shots, but he was basically neutered for this whole game, which was fantastic. And we'll come to the defence in a sec. I won't go into too much more from the ins and outs of the game, but we do want to talk about the other two goals. Whoever got the next goal for this was massive, because if you give Portland a little carrot with the crowd roaring them on, if it was 3-1, it can easily go to 3-2, and then it's squeaky bum time. But the game was put to bed in the 51st minute. And again, this is another quality goal. Like the second, third, and fourth goals were all absolute quality. Pedro Vite plays the ball to Fafa Pico. Beautiful cross in from Fafa right onto the head of Stuart Armstrong, wide open.
Wonderful
header into the side of the goal. And Stuart Armstrong doesn't score a lot of headers. I think he'd had 8 headers I checked in his career going into this.
You told me this because he's so worried about messing up his hair, right?
Oh, of course. It's like you've got to watch that. That's why I've got no hair, so many headers over the years. That's this excuse I'm going to go with. But fun fact, his first 2 goals as a pro were headers. And I threw that fact that his first goal was a header out in the post game because I'd learned it and I wanted to show my knowledge. And he just nodded accordingly. Dundee United against St Mirren, 2011. But his first playoff goal now, a header, as this was his first playoff experience as well. And he enjoyed the whole experience. It's a UK-style crowd down there.
Yeah.
And he loved it. He said you could sense the tension. He said you could feel on the pitch it was different from a league game. And he's not even been here that long, but he felt that difference.
And in the end, he seems worth all his 2.8 million.
Yes, that came out before the game, and fans were like, he's not worth that. They weren't saying that as much afterwards from his goal and 2 assists. But it's what we said in the show. Like, we know what he's capable of. I've watched him for years. I know what he's capable of. And we haven't seen the best of him, and we will see the best of him next year.
I also know what he's capable of because you don't stop telling.
Well, there's that as well. I'm proud of my Scot.
Both on and off the show.
It was Scottish night I mean, you can't take that away. The Scots dominated in this one. Gold with a hat trick and an assist,
Yeah.
and Armstrong with a
Goal, two
goal and
assists.
2 assists as well.
Just stick it to that English manager.
Yes. Oh, why did I not think of that in the post-game questions? But the 5th goal came just before the hour mark. Ryan Gold with the hat trick. Sam Arakugbe involved. Stuart Armstrong involved. Gold tucks it away nicely.
And the celebrations, right? We got to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Oh, how could I forget that? Stuart Armstrong's celebration, which she's done for a while. He scored and he runs by the Timbers Army, blowing kisses to them. And then Ryan Gold, with his hat trick, runs by them, shushing them, and then giving them a little wave as well after that. I love that shithousery. That's right up my street.
Oh,
you can just imagine he was getting abuse, and it's like, sorry, what was that?
Yeah, they must have really appreciated that.
I'm sure they did. Also, I should know, I've been down to Portland a lot. That's the first time I remember hearing the Portland fans booing the team off the pitch. Now, it didn't last the whole time. There was boos maybe for 10, 15 seconds. And then they started doing some Timbers chants to kind of rile them up. But I've not heard boos like that. But they were deserved.
Yeah. I mean,
they were awful.
They've booed their ownership quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, that we've heard. But that was the end of the scoring. The Caps got to rest some of the guys. They took them off. They got the other guys on. And Portland were never really at the races.
No.
I mean, it was a man of the match performance by Ryan Gold, doing what you want a DP to do. Stuart Armstrong as well, doing what you want a DP to do. And again, showing how exciting that 4 can be. They've got the chemistry. Fafa, it was great to see him. That assist sadly doesn't trigger the contract. It's just regular season. But I mean, you've got to bring him back. He's just what he can add to this team with Gold, Armstrong, White. It's still like another good attacker, a good striker in there. But it's exciting for what's to come. But while the attack's going to get all the praise, you've got to talk about the defence as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Vanny showing something that I appreciate.
Yes. Yeah, this was huge. This is one of the first things I noticed about the whole thing was it comes out of our conversation from last week.
Yep. Went with the back 4.
Is he willing to play? It was essentially a Christmas tree.
Yeah, but she went with again tonight against LAFC. And I quite like this formation depending on the opponent. I'm not sure the 4-3-2-1 was the way to go tonight, but we'll come to that in the next part. But yeah, going 4 at the back, I think you had to with that dangerous Portland attack. And they negated that completely.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was nice to see some tactical flexibility from Van.
Yeah. And that's what I've been critical of him that he seems a little bit stubborn, but he showed his coaching chops there with that.
Yeah.
And I like Matthias Laborda's been a bit maligned. He has had an up and down season. I have a lot of time for him as a player and as a person. And he showed his worth on that second goal as well with what he can do in the other box. But he struggled a little bit when been playing in that right back role, but he was really good against Portland. And I've liked most of what I've seen from him this year. But I really want to give flowers to Tristan Blackman. He's really come into his own down the stretch. And I know there's an issue tonight that we'll talk about with him, but I feel he's hard done by there. But I thought he was excellent. Him and Ranko actually together were tremendous in the middle of that Whitecaps.
You want to give him roses, I guess, because it's the Timbers match?
Yeah, Rose City. Why not? But no, I thought he was excellent. The whole defence was, and the whole team was really to a man.
Yeah. Yeah, like we said, a performance to the best performance of the year and one of the best in the MLS era, and a really encouraging start to their playoff run.
Yeah. And Vanny was happy after the match. And I haven't spoken to you about this and haven't put this in the rundown, but I'll mention it now because we're going to talk about Phil Neville's post-game comments.
Yeah.
But I'd listened to his pre-game stuff and I'd put that out in an extra podcast, $30 a month. No, $30 a year, $3 a month. You can give us $30 a month if you want. I might have to be a bit more prolific in that case. But so I put out the pre-game press conferences, and this was so weird from Phil Neville because I've watched Phil Neville, I've listened to Phil Neville for many years as a player, pundit, coach, and I've never heard him bring religion into anything. He's never
Oh,
struck
yeah.
me as a religious guy. Maybe he is,
Oh, yeah.
but just
I
keeps
know
it
you're going to say.
quiet. But he was asked about the game being switched to Portland and what an advantage it was to Portland. It wasn't, as it turned out. And he was like, oh, yeah, God is obviously a Timbers fan, which was a bizarre thing to come out to say just in general.
Yeah.
But then Vardy was asked about this post game, and I know you'll disagree that this is one of the quotes of the year.
No. This is okay because Vanny ends it by saying, for me.
Yeah, because that's the
Yeah.
thing. Because like we won't get into religious discussion, but I mean we've had lots over the years because we are at polar ends of our beliefs, but we get on because we're very tolerant of each other's views. I think you probably hate me, but I joke. But it's like to me that's how the world would be a better place if everyone was just a lot more tolerant to everyone's beliefs. And sadly, that isn't, as you see in the political spectrum here, the States, over in Europe and stuff as well. But Vanny said, for me, God doesn't exist. So for me, he can be a Timbers fan because he doesn't exist to me. And just went on to praise the travelling support and everything like that. And it just blew up afterwards, which it would in the States being a very Christian country. And like so many folk just loved Vanny for that. I thought he was going to, as soon as he said it, I was like, oh, he's going to get so much abuse for that. But I didn't see the abuse. And I just love him. He's honest. You know what you get with Vanny. There's no airs and graces, and he's not putting anything on.
Yeah.
Phil Neville, on the other hand, his post-game comments, I could not wait to hear these. If it hadn't been such an emphatic win, I would have gone to the Timbers locker room after the game because I just wanted to hear what he was going to say. But he threw his players under the bus big time. And it certainly sounds like there's going to be a big turnover in Portland this off-season. He spoke about the players quitting on their teammates, on the team, on the fans, players that had no interest, players that had no fight. They just didn't go for balls. I mean, one of the things I would say from the first half, and I wrote this in my notes, I was speaking to Nathan about it and Har, I don't remember a team turning the ball over as much as Timbers did in that first half. Some of them were forced by the pressing of the Whitecaps. Some of them were just not forced, and it was just misplaced passes all over the place. So Neville tore into them for that. He said it was unacceptable for a playoff performance, and he's been involved in some epic games. He's used to teams with fight and that don't give up, and he said his team quit on him. And he said he learned a lot about what players he wants to bring back for next year, what players they need to move on. And he doubled down on that in the post-game stuff as well. I only got to see a little bit of that. What was very interesting, though, and he was really keen to stress this point, he said, I'm in my first year of a 3-year contract here. And this is a work in progress, and we will be building on this for next year. So clearly coming out and saying, I'm not expecting to get sacked after this. I will be here next year.
Yeah.
And fair play to him for that. You don't often hear coaches, though, talk about how long their contract is.
No. Players occasionally.
Yes. Some that we've had. But I think everyone thought they would give him at least 1.5 to 2 years. But he made a very interesting comment because he took over from Gio Savarese, who I have a lot of time for, a great coach. And he said, you saw tonight what Gio had to put up with at the end of his time here and what I've inherited.
Yeah,
that was another very telling comment.
I thought there was, as surprising as maybe some elements were, the honesty was a bit of a breath of fresh air.
I loved it. I should have maybe said at the start, I'm not criticising Phil Neville here. I loved that for the sheer honesty of it. And I'd hope to have a chat with him over the course of the season. I can maybe get something like that sorted out if he is hanging around. I'd love to just pick his brains about football for 20, 30 minutes for a end of season chat because he's done better than I thought he was going to do. I thought it was going to be a complete disaster. And the only thing I would say, when you've got a player like Evander, who's performed and for me should be the league's MVP, he's not going to get it. It's obviously going to be Messi. But Evander should be the MVP for the league. But when he's put up those numbers, you should not be a team that's sitting in ninth.
True. In a different way, that's how I think Vancouver fans feel about like Ryan Gold.
Yes,
right?
there's that as well. Defensively is what has let down Portland, and it's the home form that's let down Vancouver. But they've got one more home game to come. At least, no, there will just be one. Because I mean, they could still host the MLS Cup, but I think it's a stretch.
Right.
They'd have to be playing Atlanta, and that doesn't look likely.
No, right, because they lost their first game.
Yeah, but I mean, stranger things have happened. But they do have one more home game to come, and we're going to talk about the next playoff game that was played tonight on Sunday. After we hear this episode song from our album of the month.
Hi, I'm Ryan Gold, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
I ride the dying horse only because she takes my loose change and down the twisted course I find myself tied to the reins. This is the last song. This is the last song I ever wanna sing. This is the last song. This is the last song. It's underneath my skin. I used to be so young, thinking I was only just begun. Now my mind's never clear. I don't know what I'm doing here. This is the last song. This is the last song I ever wanna sing. This is the last song. This is the last song. It's underneath my skin. Down by the canal, the water's dark and heavenly. This is the last song. This is the last song I ever wanna sing. This is the last song. This is the last song. This is the last song. This is the last song.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio, 101.9 FM, the only soccer show on Vancouver radio. Because there's not a lot of sport on Vancouver radio these days, Zach. It's quite sad to see how it's been decimated when you can't even listen to the Vancouver radio stuff. Although if you've got kind of digital radio, I believe you can now tune in and listen to it if you've got digital radio in your car or whatever, which I don't. I still have a CD player.
Yeah, neither do I.
I'm going to miss my CD player when I get a new car.
They don't have them anymore, right?
No.
Yeah. Both of my
They've
viewers
moved
have
with the times, even though I haven't.
Yeah.
All these cars have all these fancy bells and whistles. I just want a CD player.
I'm sure you can rig it up somehow.
Oh, no, you can't. You can buy a USB one or just
Yeah.
like get a Bluetooth one. But nah, it would just be nice to have. But kicking off this part was, it's the sad time of the month. Our final song from our album of the month, English band Kinky Machine, their 1994 second album, Bent. And that was the 12th and final song on it. aptly called Last Song. I wouldn't mind that played at my funeral, I think. This is the last song.
Are we planning that already?
Oh, I've already planned my funeral. I initially was going to go out. The last song was going to be the Buzzcocks, Everybody's Happy Nowadays.
Hmm.
Thought that would be I'm not having a funeral. I'm just going to get like cremated and then scattered in all the football grounds that I love. So Caitlin's going to have her work cut out.
You're hilarious.
Maybe even the grounds I don't love. Just to curse them. Yeah, you've got to plan ahead. You never know. But last song, it's a beautiful last song for an album. It's one of my favorite Kinky Machine songs. And thankfully, it wasn't a last hurrah for the Whitecaps on Wednesday. They're now into the first round of the playoffs, the best of three series. Oh, I wonder who they'll be playing this year. Oh, it's LAFC again. Meeting LAFC for the 74th time over 2 seasons is genuinely how it felt. And I don't know if that affected the attendance tonight. Officially, it was just shy of 23,000, but there was a few empty seats around that stadium. And I do wonder if it being a Sunday evening or if it was just the thoughts of, oh, the Whitecaps again. We'll win this one. Let's save our money and get the later round of the playoffs.
Yeah, you might be right.
Mm-hmm. But it was always going to be a tough outing for the team. The Whitecaps, they battled hard. They had a few chances and they did cause some problems for LAFC. But I think ultimately they I think the class shone through really from Portland in the end.
You mean LAFC?
LAFC, wow, yeah, geez. The class shone through from LAFC in the end.
Yeah, it was actually, I think the game on the whole, I think was like LAFC rightly won the game. And I know some people don't feel that way, but I think they did. But it was an incredibly like close match in like not even just in the end, when Gold scores near the end of the game, like, both teams hit the woodwork twice.
I genuinely think it could have finished 4-3.
Oh, yes, for sure. But some people I know feel like maybe the turning point is the VAR decision on the PK.
It's hard not to look at that because it was the opening goal. I mean, for me, the big turning point came 7 minutes in when Brian White hit that one off the post. Because you get the first goal and it's a whole different game.
Yeah, it could end 6-1.
Yeah.
For either team.
Yeah. But I mean, it would have been interesting to see how Vancouver then approached it if they'd taken that early lead. And I felt they needed to get the early breakthrough here to really test LAFC and maybe force them to open up and leave more space at the back. And they should have. That is a chance. Brian White has to score that.
Yeah. I mean, it is a crucial moment, and it is a momentum shift for sure. Like you said before, it's a game of fine margins, and that was definitely one of them.
Yeah, and there was a few of them in this game because like Tillman turned the ball over, Armstrong gets the ball, powers forward, plays it through for White, and it was interesting. I listened to a bit of the halftime stuff, and Maurice Edu on commentary, it might have been that said this. Maybe it wasn't actually in the studio at halftime, but someone had mentioned, it was Bradley Wright Phillips.
Oh yeah.
And like he knows how to score. And he said what White needed to do there was not just get the ball, turn and shoot. He just needed to look up for a split second.
Yeah.
And see where it was and then just place it a little bit differently.
Well, wasn't he a Brian White teammate at one point at Dead Bull?
I guess he would have been, yeah.
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 So he knows Brian and Brian's game quite well.
But I mean, Brian only really exploded His game changed totally when he came here.
That's true.
But I think on the plus side, it showed Brian knows where the goal is and anticipation, and he didn't want to give Lloris any split second of advantage, but you've got to tuck that one away. It was massive.
Yeah.
And it cost them. But yeah, the other turning point then came with the opening goal, and Whitecaps caught on a quick transition play. It was a 3-on-2 break. And I was watching it. I said to Caitlin, oh, we're in big trouble here. I
Mhm.
expected them to score and bury it. The shot is blocked by Blackman. And I was like, oh, fantastic stop. And then they're all appealing. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about this then. And the game carried on. But because they then stopped the game before the ball had even gone out, I was like, oh, this is going to a VAR review then.
Yeah.
And I thought I'll have to wait to see it. I have seen no definitive shot that shows me that hit Blackman's outstretched arm. I think it hits his tucked in left arm.
That's I never thought about it like that. I mean, the way his arm moves, it got hit by something. That the arm doesn't move like that.
I think it may have come off his left arm onto his right.
The ball, or you mean his
Ball,
left?
yeah. But
Yeah,
I thought the rule was if it hits a body part and then onto your arm, it's not a penalty.
That's what I thought as well. But I've seen those given in
Well,
other places.
but that's the thing. I've seen these given, I've seen these not given, and nobody seems to really have the consistency to know what's going to be a penalty and what's not anymore.
But regardless of all that, I think a player blocked a shot that was going goal bound with their hand. So
But I
that's
mean,
what
arguably in that case, you could say it would also maybe be a red card because he's denied a goal scoring opportunity. But it wasn't 100% a goal scoring
exactly. It
opportunity.
wasn't an open net. It was
Yeah.
yeah.
I just don't know that there was enough in the replays to overturn the on-field decision. That's my big issue with this.
Yeah, that's a
Because the
valid
referee looked
criticism.
to be perfectly placed for it. And it came in at such speed. And obviously, as soon as you slow everything down, everything looks differently. But I mean, he may have seen a definitive shot. They didn't show anything in the broadcast that definitively showed that it hit the outstretched arm. And if anything, I think it hits his left one, which is tucked in. And you can't do it. How can you get out of the way of that? It was coming at him at some force. What you meant to do.
Yeah.
But
You're not wrong, Michael. But I do think that giving a penalty in that instance is within the spirit of the laws of the game, and
yeah,
I think it's the right decision. Again, I would say if you were to if the teams were reversed and that wasn't given, right? I think
I'd
like
probably be annoyed. Yeah. If it had been given on the field, I probably would not have been that upset by it.
right.
But it's the fact that it wasn't, and I don't see that I saw enough to overturn it. But I don't know. I'm sure we'll hear from Darnell during the week. He'll give his thoughts on
Yeah.
it, our referee expert. But I mean, that was massive. And then Buanga, of course, the cap killer, steps up, buries it. It's 1-0. And I'll be honest, at that point, I thought, I think they're going to be done here, and LA is going to rack the goals up. To their credit, the Whitecaps settled and took the game back to LA. It was end-to-end stuff. The game was going to and fro. And then right in first half stoppage time, it's a free kick. Ryan Gold, you're thinking, it's a bit out to try and beat Lloris from that. Absolutely stunning free kick. It looked like it was going to head to the postage stamp corner, but it just hits, whether it's the bar, the post, the actual corner itself, I'm not sure. But, agonizingly again, it's a game of inches.
Yeah. A lovely free kick. Lovely free kick.
I mean, that would have been up there in the goals of the season as well. And that would have made it an interesting halftime team talk for both and how they approached the second half. In the end, LAFC, I think they comfortably saw this one out. They got the second goal in the 57th minute. And this one annoys me so much just because Sam Adekugbe gets sucked into the middle. And Christian Oliveira is just allowed to ghost in unchecked. And we'd had a couple of scares, like before White hit the post in the opening 4 minutes, the opening 2 minutes, they let Olivier Giroud get a free header in front of goal.
Yep.
And it's like, you cannot give a player of that quality that much space.
Nope.
He didn't get it on target, and he's still looking for his first actual MLS goal, but it was concerning. And then in this one, it was great team play. It was great build-up play. And Bagush could have selfishly gone for the shot, but he sees the run, plays it out to Oliveira. finished from a tight angle. I've seen fans question, could Takaoka have done better? It was coming in at some force. I think
Yeah.
most keepers, the vast majority of keepers would have be beaten. It's tough when it's at the near post because you always think, oh, the keeper should have done better. But that was hit with venom.
Yeah, powerful finish that finds his way into the roof of the net. I think it's maybe a little bit hard to criticize Taka for that, although he does give that wry sort of smile thing after, which
I
is
think
his-
it's just a
way.
case of
Yeah, it's his
got
way,
done there.
his way of showing, I think, his frustration. It's what his face looks like.
Yeah.
Like that. But yeah. I mean, at that time too, you also thought, I don't know, I was just like, oh, maybe this will get away from them, like what they did to
Yep.
Portland a little bit.
And it could have done. Bagush hit the woodwork twice.
But yeah, you're right. But to their credit, they kind of they kept going. They kept going, and didn't quit, didn't give up.
But in saying that, like aside from the two woodworks that they hit in the first half, they didn't they pushed and they didn't give up, but they didn't threaten
Create
the
as
back
much
three
as
of
they would have
LAFC. There was at no point in the game did it look like, oh, they're going to pull one back here. It felt like LAFC were comfortably seeing this out.
Until they did.
Till they did from out of nowhere. I was finishing off my match report, kind of looking up at the TV from the side of my eye, and I was like, oh, whoa, we've pulled one back. Immediately looked at the clock because I didn't know how much time was left.
1 minute.
And it's like, shit. And I think an extra 2-3 minutes more, it would have been interesting. And Gold had that shot that then got blocked by Pico. So we don't know, was that goal bound or what?
Yeah.
But that would have been a stunner if they got 2 stoppage time goals. But it was a nice goal. Krylak, nice to see him getting an assist because it's been a tough season for Big Demir and taken well by Gold. And in one of the chats that I'm in, we were talking about this because the feeling was at 2-0, that's it done now. We should get the top guys off, get them rested. But he kept Gold on for the full 90 and it paid off. I don't know if I would have rested him or not. It did look a tired Whitecaps team out there. I mean, they'd played midweek, LAFC hadn't. Like, not making excuses. And Vanny said, I know I'm saying this, but I'm not using this as an excuse. But the players were tired out there. And they were, because they put in a hell of a shift on Wednesday. Then you're flying back, and then you're flying back down to LA. And it was 19 degrees at kickoff. I'm not sure what the humidity was. And the players looked sweating in the first half. But they looked out of gas, some of them in that second half. And it is understandable. But they've got a week's rest now.
Yeah.
And I think they showed enough in this game to have some real hope and some expectation going into this game next Sunday that they can go out and do something in it.
Yeah, the Tim Ford Memorial match next weekend is shaping up well.
I mean, the MLS should appoint him as the ref, just for shits and giggles.
There's no way they're doing that, Michael.
We've
But
not
you're
had a year.
You're right, though. It would be really.
I was going to say to Vanny in the post game, hey, he did well. He didn't get sent off because he joked after the Timbers game. He's like, I just have to make sure I don't get sent off against LAFC this time.
Oh, there's another chance.
Yes.
Obviously, we've talked about how they perform seemingly better or more consistent on the road.
Yeah.
Maybe where they don't feel the pressure maybe they don't feel the pressure. They feel more free or whatever it is. Yeah. What do you rate their chances at coming back where they absolutely have to win?
It's tough because I thought there was a gulf in quality tonight between the two teams, if we're being brutally honest. And it's a gulf in terms of finishing and being clinical. And you've got guys like Buanga.
Kamara
like
and
Kamara.
Vela.
Yeah, like on the
off the
bench, you've got the luxury of Kai Kamara, the second leading all-time scorer in MLS, and legend that is Carlos Vela, who doesn't look match fit.
No.
I think is a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But he got a little cameo, and the fans were cheering for him, and he came on and he got it, and I mean, whatever you think of the Mexican national team, he's a legend of the game.
Yeah.
It's like he's done well around the world, and he's a prolific scorer. And you've got that luxury of having that and Kamara on the bench. So there is a gulf in class.
Are you saying he's not? I mean, Levante Johnson's not quite the same.
See, I was going to bring up Levante, and I thought it's going to sound like we're piling on him again, but you brought it up instead.
No, I'm not playing on Levante. It just
I know, but we brought on
no.
Levante, and they brought on Kai Kamara and Carlos
I
Vela.
know. That's just the golf in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've seen fans saying, oh, until we start spending money, we're never going to be competing with this. I think when the salaries came out, the Whitecaps were 12th highest spenders across MLS. So the old, they don't spend money has gone a bit because they have spent money.
I think the Armstrong thing brings them up.
Yeah, and gold as well, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, they spent money, and like the salary of the likes of Laborda, and you've got White, and Pico will be up for a rise and stuff next year. So they are spending money. It's just not on those big name players that we spoke about last week, that some fans will never be happy until we get a Didier Drogba, Thierry Henry, somebody like that coming in that, oh, we've seen them on Match of the Day and playing in the Prem and stuff like that.
The Scottish Prem.
Yeah, which we've got now with Stuart Armstrong. He was in the Prem for 5 years, but it was another performance that defensively, I thought it was good. And there was enough glimmers tonight that make me feel we can get something next Sunday. Again, the first goal could be massive. They can't just go for it, though. That's the problem, because their season's on the line. But if they sit back and sit too deep, they can get destroyed and penned in by this LAFC side. Vanny spoke post-game that the key for them was to stop the LA transitional play, because they know how dangerous they are. And he said they kept him to just 5 tonight, which is actually pretty good. Sadly, the 3-on-2 was horrific to even allow that to happen. And that's what they need to shore up. I asked Vanny post-game, do you feel another midfielder in there would maybe help with situations like that? And he was like, no. So it sounds like they're going 4-3-2-1 again. Now, Ali Ahmed got the start tonight over Fafa Pico. That was the only change. And the reason for that was he felt that would negate some of their attacking players a bit more than Fafa. Fafa's more your attacking guy, where Ali can come back and do that defensive shift.
Yeah, and that obviously ultimately didn't pay off.
No, I thought he did okay. He broke up some plays and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know that he'll get the start on Sunday. I think you put Fafa in.
Yeah, with the extensive, the longer rest or the week-long rest or recovery, I think there's a better chance that Fafa starts.
My 2 changes for Sunday. He might want to switch the back line up. I don't know. I'd still go with the back 4. He may want to go 3 back, like go toe-to-toe with LA. I'd be very concerned by that unless you're having Berhalter and Kubicin as stoppers that are not going forward. But I mean, that is an option if you want to go like a 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 or something. I would maybe take Viti out the starting lineup as well and put in like a Berhalter out wide, who can then go in the middle as well and break things up. That would be my changes for Sunday. I hope they get a good crowd out. I think they will. It's an early-ish kickoff. I think it would allow folk from the island to get over and get back. I believe it's 5:45. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the last ferry? 9?
Depending on where you're going. I think 10:30, 10:40 from Nanaimo or to Nanaimo. And to Wasson, to Victoria, I'm not 100% sure. But there's the fast ferries as well. They might put on a special late night sailing. So I hope they get a good crowd out in one sense. But also when we get the big crowds out, they don't perform as we're talking about. And then I've got concerns. If I get a chance to speak to Vanny midweek, I'm going to pitch an idea to him, which I pitched to Carl Robinson back in the day. You've probably never heard of the English coach Barry Fry.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Oh, he was head coach of Peterborough.
I was going to say Peterborough United. Yeah.
He was a character. The belief was that Peterborough's ground had a gypsy curse put on it. So the way that he thought, he was told by like a psychic or a fortune teller of a way to lift the curse. So he did it. And he went and urinated in all 4 corner flags and it lifted the curse. So I'm going to pitch that idea to Vanny. I could see him doing that.
Oh my.
No Supercross either, so there's no sand to piss in.
It's not like a kitty litter anymore.
No. Oh, the gag I was going to do in part 1. Yeah, the game was played in because of the Supercross, and when you got a cut to the bench at one point, it showed Max Crepeau. He looked Supercross.
Nice one.
The commentators tonight did a Supercross gag as well, which annoyed me because I had done a couple in my tweets on Wednesday. But anyway, it's an obvious way to go. It's low-hanging fruit to do that gag. But yeah, should be an interesting game. I hope they can take it to game 3 for a couple of reasons. One, I wouldn't be able to do the post-game end of season availability because I'm commentating during the week and I'll be away out of town. So I need it to go to game 3 so I can attend that. But also, it would be a step better than last year. Vanny mentioned after the game that one of his goals was to win his first playoff game, which he's done. And I'm not having this wildcard nonsense. It was a playing game. It was a playoff game.
Yeah, it's a postseason game. Yeah.
So he's won his first playoff game. Now he wants to win his first home playoff game. And if they can, and it sets it up for the decider down in LA on the Friday, who knows where that one will go, because the nerves will creep in a little bit for LAFC as well.
The third game in the best of 3 series would be, I think, highly entertaining.
I still don't like the best of 3 series. I think it's so stupid.
I concur.
But I mean, I like straight knockout, and I know that would be our season over if that was the case. But it is what it is. Let's make the most of it and let's get to game 3. And I tell you what, if the Whitecaps can get through this, their confidence will be massive. And I spoke about this last week, that the Portland game was massive as well for them, because if they'd gone out, their self-confidence, their belief would be shot with the way that this season ended. But that gave them such a lift. They didn't get blown out tonight, and I think they'll really make a go of it on Sunday. I think they can get through it. They don't have to win. They can get to penalties and win the shootout. Vanny mentioned as well, we don't have to go out early and score super early. We just have to get a victory somehow.
Yeah.
And I think they've got a good chance of doing it. My heart says they can, but my head says they're going to fall just short and maybe a 1-goal defeat.
Yeah, that also sounds sensible. And you're right. They've done really well in shootouts recently. So even getting a draw and then winning that way and taking it back to LA that way, I think would be even if a small step, a step forward for them.
Yeah. I think MLS and Apple would love some of these games to go to the best of 3 just to build the excitement and get more airtime. I'm also very confident in saying that both the league and Apple would love nothing more than an all LA Western Conference final.
Yeah.
And on the Eastern side, they'd probably like an all Florida one, to be honest. Setting up a derby. But I don't know, maybe they want a big market in, a New York market in, the Red Bulls or something from that as well. I'm just actually looking at the Eastern Conference standings because I'm not. It could not be an all Miami Eastern Conference final. So apologies for that, because Orlando finished 4th. Couldn't remember where they ended in the end.
Right.
So they would be playing Miami in the semis if that sets that up. So it could be Miami, Columbus, Miami, Cincinnati, which isn't maybe as exciting to some of the neutrals, but when you've got Messi involved, it is. The Messi overkill, it's starting to really annoy me now. There's just so much of it. I understand it, and I know they're marketing it to people that's not me
Hey,
around the world, but it's like Messi had a shit today. Here's a 5-part documentary about it.
Well, speaking of Messi in Miami, the craziest thing that I've seen come out of about them in the last week or two or whatever it was that FIFA has awarded them a spot in the Club World Cup.
Yes.
What absolute trash that is.
Yep. I mean,
Uh,
right away, it devalues that tournament.
it's so ridiculous.
But then you've got MLS truthers that it's like, well, it just shows you how important the regular season is, which I do agree with that. But you've won that. Why are you now in the FIFA Club World Cup? There's already 2 American teams in it as the host nation. You didn't need to add a third. Oh, yes, you did, because it's Messi and Ronaldo's going to be there with his team. I think. Haven't looked at all the teams, but I'm pretty sure he is. Yeah, that's farcical. If we look just at the other playoff games that's been played, we're recording this on Sunday, so there's not been a lot played just now. Montreal were bounced out.
Yeah.
They fought back. Like Atlanta, they were 2-0 up, and they should have put the game to bed. They had chances to kill it off, and they didn't, and they allowed Montreal to get back in it. And then it goes to penalties, and Atlanta go through anyway. So that was a heartbreaking end for Montreal.
Mhm.
But Atlanta gave Miami a little bit of a run for their money. They were under the cosh for big chunks off the game. But Miami got through game 1 in the series. I fast forwarded through the Orlando-Charlotte game this afternoon as well, and
Yeah.
Orlando deserved winners there.
Easy to know, yeah.
Does look like it could be a Floridian semi-final, which will be entertaining. And I'll be cheering on Orlando in that 100%. The Galaxy on Saturday night.
Thrashed.
Wow.
Yeah. What time is it down in LA?
Yeah. It's 5 past Colorado. Not the first time I've said that this weekend, but with a different team. And the Galaxy looked immense. They're still probably pissed off at throwing away first
Yeah.
when they had it in their hands. But yeah, I mean, an all LA Western Conference final would be absolutely crazy, and I would love to see it. But obviously, I want the Whitecaps there. But if the Whitecaps can get through this series, they would play the winner of the Houston-Seattle series. And I fancy them in that.
Yeah. That's a one-off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
A one-off possibly down in Seattle. Oh, tasty.
Very.
Even in Houston, it's like I fancy them to go down there. So if they can get through this, I genuinely think the Whitecaps can get to the Western Conference final.
Which would achieve their goal of going deep into the playoffs, yeah. Or making a further playoff run than they have so far in the MLS.
Last thing to talk about in this part, or last thing we're going to talk about MLS. I don't know how much you saw of this week, Zach, but the Athletic ran an article and then a follow-up piece citing sources that MLS are looking to change their calendar and move to a fall to spring season from the 2026 season after the World Cup, which would make sense in a number of ways because the Whitecaps, for example, can't play at BC Place for a large chunk of 2026. You don't want to have to stop your season for possibly 2 months. So the way to get around that is you start your season after the World Cup in August and change to the international standard of August to May, which exciting to me in some ways, but you look at some of the venues and some of the cities and you're like, how the hell is that going to work?
Yeah. I think yeah, I did see this out in the ether. And yeah, it's not surprising that this type of conversation is happening. I think they've sort of avoided it before because it doesn't seem reasonable logistically and climactically. And that's why I don't, if it does happen, if somehow they try and do this, Michael, it's the kind of thing I think they do it for a year or two and then they switch back.
Oh, you think? I think it
Maybe.
would be hard to switch back though after that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely would be hard. So the only reason it's easy to switch is because of the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
makes it logistically easy. Although I don't wonder what's going to happen with salaries and stuff in that.
I also wonder then what they do in those 7 months before that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, is that when the League's Cup's going to take place?
Oh yeah, probably something
But
like
I
that.
guess you've then also got CONCACAF Champions Cup. Will they
And
then play the US Open Cup then? Will
totally, and every
they,
team will be in it.
yeah, will USL have to kind of maybe change their schedule? Because this will have the knock-on effect as well in MLS Next Pro, because they will also then switch to the fall to spring
I
schedule.
don't know if USL would switch. I think the one advantage that MLS sort of potentially has is they do have, I think some of the colder places maybe can play in more bigger indoor facilities if they really wanted to. Now, obviously,
Oh, that would be
that'd be
horrible.
that'd be going away from, some of the hard work they've done to build soccer specific stadiums in certain spots, or they'll just play outdoor in the cold like they do for certain parts of the pigskin year
Oh, I
season.
know. Like you think of Green Bay and you think of all those games
Yeah.
there, and like Minnesota,
Yeah.
Montreal, Toronto.
Hmm.
I mean, Montreal, at least they could go to the Olympic Stadium.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I mean, would Toronto look at?
Skydome,
Yeah. Ooh.
it's horrible. Yeah. Those are the kinds of things they could do, but then is that you losing revenue on that, or how does that all work? But
But you also have to think of fan comfort as well. Like I'm used to a winter season in Scotland,
yeah,
and having come here, like I say to all my friends, what are we doing? Playing football in the winter and freezing our tits off. Have summer football, which to be fair in Scotland, you're also freezing your tits off. But
uh,
there's a lot of obesity in Scotland, so a few of the guys could do with shaving some time off their tits. But
Michael. Oh my goodness. No, it is a fan comfort, as you put it, is a legitimate concern, right? Because it'll impact it.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's done in other sports. I can see them trying it.
I'm all for it. I think it'll be interesting then in terms of transfer windows, because then we're the same as the rest of the world over here,
But
and you're like,
isn't that
ooh,
better? Isn't that better for MLS then?
yeah.
Yeah.
But players, a lot of clubs wait for players to decide if they can get anything in Europe and then add them, which now
Right.
not be.
Stuart Armstrong's a prime example,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But like we've talked about with Stuart Armstrong, he doesn't come in at a time of year that's like I mean, now obviously it paid off in Portland.
yeah. But you're coming in not match fit.
No, and think if he had come in much earlier, had been there the whole season, you're probably not in the bottom two playoff spots, you
Mhm.
know. Anyways,
Well,
I
yeah.
think
And if you look at players that we have added mid-season, there's very few. Like Kendall Waston's a great example. He came in, he
Yeah.
was ready to go.
yeah.
But there's not many of them like that.
No, but the Costa Rican season
Yeah.
is different. Well, he came off in his close season because the Costa Rican season Apertura starts in like August or end of July or August. But yeah, maybe better isn't the right way to phrase it. Maybe I think it would be more healthy for the MLS clubs. It'll force them to have their ducks in a row as opposed to sitting
Mhm.
around waiting for that last big piece to come from Europe
Yeah.
or wherever.
I also wonder though if it'll change the whole transfer structure and stuff as well.
Yeah,
I mean, there's something I'd love to see it in the league, but I'm fully aware it would be very detrimental to clubs like the Whitecaps, which is an open intra-league transfer system where you're like, okay, KC, we want to sign Johnny Russell. Here's all this money. Here's a transfer fee. We're bringing him to Vancouver. And just now, that's not really. You could trade when it's not the same as saying, right, we want to buy this player off you. Now,
Mm.
obviously, that could work against us because somebody could come in and go, yeah, we want Ryan Gold. Here's 20 million.
But isn't the problem for that with MLS the single entity element? Isn't that partly
But
where
there are owners that's pushing hard for these changes. And it's
because
like Miami owners, LA owners. And
because the single entity holds down it keeps MLS teams from fighting against each other.
well, yeah, because it's basically built on a whole pyramid system.
Yeah.
It's like a pyramid scheme. It's like,
I was going to say pyramid system. You mean
yeah. It's like a house of cards just waiting to topple if things go horribly wrong, which it hasn't, thankfully. But there's strong voices pushing for change, and it's whether there's enough that will stand up and go, no, this is bad for us. We can't do this.
Yeah, I don't know that's going to
I
happen.
mean, a lot of discussions to be had, and I think Don Garber's state of the league address at the end of the year will be interesting. But another thing to factor into this as well, which I was just reading about yesterday and I tweeted out, the American college system is also looking to do some tweaks.
Oh yeah, you told
They're
me that.
looking to go to an 8-month season from a 3-month season and basically be semi-pro.
Hmm.
Now, that's going to have a knock-on effect for things like USL League 2, potentially League 1 here in Canada, because you won't have the NCAA players coming back to play in the summer on the men and the women's side. And it may not affect loads of players, but it could have a knock-on effect. And it could also have a knock-on effect for Canadian universities when players are like, oh, I could go to college and just play 3 months in the Canadian college system. Or if I went to a US school, I'd be kind of semi-pro and I'd have a good grounding and 8 months and more eyes on me there. So
Yeah.
that could take some talent away as well. So it's a very exciting North American soccer landscape just now, I will say that. And this is going to give us some fascinating chats to have as well in the off-season,
Totally.
which
I
is
wonder what that
obviously our favourite part of the show.
favorite part of the year. Yeah.
Yeah.
The if MLS were to make this change, it would be interesting to see what that does for the Canadian League, Canadian Premier League, which is obviously not going to do that.
Yeah, there's no way.
Which is totally fine. But I wonder if that changes the small connectivity there's been between the two leagues in terms of players moving between them. But yeah.
I mean, so many questions. And it is all just kind of speculation, but based on a good sources and elements of what is believed to be fact. So we'll see how all that plays out. We'll see how the playoffs play out. That is it for the MLS chat. But there's more playoffs going on just now. Quite a lot in North America. We're just going to focus on the Canadian side, the Canadian Premier League playoffs that were in full force this past week and especially this weekend. And we'll be back chatting about that after this episode's official Britpop song.
Hi, I'm Tommy Wilden Jr., and you are listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Moving in a circle, coming on a little dizzy spell, and the room is all for long. We could be stuck in substance hell. Summer up, this is what we need. So hand in hand and off we sway. I'm not that close to you. I'm not that close to you. Your face is taking pictures of itself. I close my eyes and sighs explode. We sellotape the telephone, and all the little voices grow. Summer up, this is what we need. So hand in hand and off we sway. I'm not that close to you. I'm not that close to you. It's only the state I'm in, I'm about to come down. It's only the mess within is about to come out.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM, Canada's longest running English language soccer podcast. So long the episodes just run from one into the other, I think. It's been 639 episodes and it's just been a consistent
Stream.
stream of consciousness put into the ether. Kicking off this part, it's our official Britpop song. I say that because there's 3 Britpop songs in this episode of the show. I'm really buying into the 30-year anniversary, the Oasis reunion, everything like that. This is a band we featured as the very first Britpop song when we were doing this section a couple of weeks ago. English band Echo Belly. And that was the 4th single and the final single released from their debut album, Everybody's Got One, released on October 24th, 1994, peaking at number 59 in the UK charts in the week of release. And that was Close, But. And I thought that was a very apt song to actually play because Whitecaps tonight were close, but so far away at the same time, and no cigar at the end of it. And looking now at the CPL playoffs, there's a few other teams that were close, but did not make it through. And we'll kick things off by chatting about the BC team that made it into the final 5 and their wild card stroke playing game on Wednesday night. It was a tough one. I think Pacific just ran out of gas in the end. They'd had so much to try and get into this postseason. And they had a good first half against York, but once that first York goal went in, they just didn't seem to have what it took to get over the line, and York got through in the end, and Pacific bounced out.
Yeah, I think that's a good, simple summary of things.
2-0 in the end, we should mention as well.
Mabuli with the late...
92nd minute sealer as Pacific pushed forward. And Leon got the opener in the 47th minute, and I felt for Pacific after that, and you're like, I don't think they're coming back, and they didn't. But I mean, they'd given their all to get there. Cross-country travel, short notice, but a lot to build upon, I think, for Pacific going into 2025. And it will be interesting to see who's there, what turnover there is. And Vancouver FC, we mentioned last week, they are having their end-of-season media availability on Tuesday. So we'll do a bit more on that in probably next week's show, depending on how things go playoff-wise and any other news that's breaking. But that is the plan, to kind of have an in-depth breakdown of VFC in next week's show. We won't be doing it for Pacific FC, but it's not been probably the season that they hoped for.
No, I think a number of things haven't played out the way they thought, I think.
Well, destroyed in the derbies by VFC for one.
Yeah, it was...
Barring the last one, which was ending up being pivotal, but...
Yeah, they lost, 3-1 in the derbies, which is not potentially it could have ended their season.
Well, yeah, because I mean that put the pressure on them then, because they didn't have the tiebreaker. So a lot of emotional energy, I think, exhausted these last few weeks. Yeah,
but even like the hero, one of the heroes at the end of the season was our good friend Darius Zanata.
Yeah,
but you think if he was in that kind of form all season, they would not have been where they would not been in the part of the table that they were in. But
yeah, that's
the same if you look at other clubs, including Vancouver FC, some of their top performers had really performed. But no, I feel bad for James. I feel like injuries and loss of form or lack of settling really cost them. I feel like obviously they haven't replaced some of those massive departures of players they lost, like Aparicio and Didic and others from previous years. And
we speculated about the goalkeeping situation, and Sean Melvin did get the nod.
Yeah, that was the comparison I was thinking about with Prepo and Pantemis.
Yeah,
it was a similar situation where you had Emil Gazdoff makes a horrific error to get sent off, and then Sean steps in, and then Sean keeps his place, and Emil doesn't get back in. And again, I don't think that's the reason they lost.
No, not at all.
And I was really happy for Sean because we know him. We know him well.
We've known him for many a year.
And so, again, something that people will talk about, or people will question, or people will analyze as they look back on their one match postseason and the year as a whole. It feels like they were always just a little bit off. Like it feels like they're missing like some big players to kind of step into the middle, the core of that team to really define it. Like when you had like I feel like Sean, I think it was a lot of injury, but Sean Young, I feel like did not have the year that he's had that he hasn't performed the way he has in previous years to really be that kind of he doesn't score tons of goals, but he's kind of just that presence in the midfield. He's also the connectivity to the club and the community is so valuable from a player like him. Your buddy Josh Hurd again struggle with injury, which kept him out, and he's another guy that's like that, right? Like
like he's so huge for them. I mean,
Yeah.
like TMG had a fantastic season. If they could clone him and get a few others like that, I mean, he's probably my player of the year for them, just with his consistency throughout the year. This recruitment this offseason is going to be an interesting one.
And even that's the other thing is like the guys that they brought in kind of mid-season to help bolster and replace. Because remember, one of the huge injuries they had was that big center back they brought in from Franks. Didn't he do his like a knee or something? And so then they were always just trying to fill that gap. And they brought, was it the Argentine center back? He seemed to fill that, end up kind of taking that spot and then kind of lost it. It didn't start the last game. Again, I think he had a sending off near the end there, end of the season too, or whatever. But it's like they've never replaced Didic essentially, right? They gotta fill that hole. I think they gotta fill a hole in midfield, and they gotta figure things out up top. I was also disappointed by the Romanian they brought in. He had his moments, but he was not the kind of the game changer type that I kind of thought he was going to be based on some of the hype and some of the kind of the early looks at him.
I think they may have solved their attacking woes if they can bring Moses Dyer back next year. Him, Dario, they do need another piece there. I think Dario and Dyer D&D we can go with. They complement each other. I think they're good together.
I think Moses helped. Like Moses as a player, I think is very helpful. I'd be a little bit surprised if he's back there next year.
Really, I think he will be.
Yeah,
unless you've heard stuff that.
No, I haven't heard anything definitive, but I just would be surprised.
I seem to be enjoying Ireland life when I had a brief chat with him, but I don't know, we'll see. But I mean, their season's over, and when you look at the top four and the bottom four, I mean, it felt towards the end there was a gulf definitely in points. I mean, was there that big a gulf on the pitch? I don't know. Was it just that the top four were just better at getting the results and grinding out the wins?
Yeah, I think maybe it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Yeah, the four were definitely deserving of their spots, I think. But yeah, this will be another interesting offseason to see if that gulf is bridged by the bottom four, or if there's any kind of shift there. I mean, when you look at those top four, and you and I have talked about this off the show a little bit, you have these two legacy clubs who were built on the backs of, rightly so, built on the backs of these youth setups in their community with local coaches who knew every player and every inch of the community and were able to build really strong teams. And then you have the next two teams are these teams that have significant foreign backing, right? You have the Spaniards, Atletico Madrid, who own Atletico Ottawa, and then you have these Mexican brothers or these Mexican investors who now own York. It'll be interesting to see if does the gulf widen, or does it maybe get bridged a bit or holistically, and some of these Valor, who has community ownership, and the 265 teams from BC, and the Halifax, who's also owned by the owners of Hamilton, if they're able to maybe take a bigger step, excuse me, as a hiccup, they're able to take a bigger step.
There's been a few hiccups by some of these teams in the year so far, so that's apt.
That is going to be one of the interesting things in the off season. Does this gulf widen, or does it get narrowed?
One of the things for me this off season is I'm curious to see, are we just going to see more recycling of players around teams?
Yes.
Or are they actually going to bring in some new, fresh talent?
I think it's going to be a little bit of both. But
Because
again,
that is one of the things that annoys me a little bit too much. It's like, oh, this guy's been on 3, 4 clubs now, and it's like, geez.
but that's what happens like it happens in every league.
Well, it happens in every league, but when it's only a league of 8 teams, it's
Sure.
a bit odd.
Yeah. I know. I that's valid as a
Like
concern.
if we had 20 teams in the league, fine. If it was like a couple of divisions, fine. But it's like you're just wondering, oh, who's going to be surplus requirements here? But oh, they might be a good fit here. Let's just move them around. I want to see some new faces. I want to see new talent. I want to see some more Canadian stars break through because there's so many at the college game in League One across Canada that deserve this opportunity. And I mean, there's players that just haven't been given the opportunities, and we'll go into that a bit more maybe when we do our whole CPL end of season wrap up towards the end of the year as well. If we get into this weekend or today's two semi-finals, if you want to call it, no, it's not really a semi-final.
One's a
Playoff
semifinal,
games.
one's a semifinal, one's a quarterfinal. Essentially.
Yeah, that's a way to describe it then. I couldn't watch them live. For some reason, I knew it was the Sunday, but all week I've thought it was the Saturday, and I was looking forward to seeing it because I had the afternoon off from commentating, and I was like, crap, it's going to be on Sunday when I'm commentating.
Yeah.
So I got to watch the first 90 minutes of York Ottawa, which wasn't the best game in the world, it has to be said. It was a little bit nervy at times, and neither team wanted to make a mistake, a bit cagey, did explode into life. Just before full time and then just into extra time. But I missed extra time. I had to watch it when I got home. But this was one of these games, and I kind of touched on this with you before we started recording. I don't really care for either team. So I didn't really care who won it, which was hard for me then to get a bit invested in it.
Yeah, and that's understandable. My question for you, because it conflicted with work for me, so I didn't watch any of it live. I only watched the highlights of it. That opening goal from the ginger boy there, Ollie Bassett, is that technically an Olympico?
Oh no, it was given as an Olympico, at least by the commentary team. Yeah.
Okay.
I know. Because I called one of those this year. I've actually called 2 Olympicos this year, which is bizarre. It's like they're becoming so common now. I don't understand
all I was going to say, it was like one of the most ugly Olympicos I think you could score.
Yes, because I was going to say one of the ones that I called this year was like that as well. And I gave it as an Olympico, but at the same time, you're kind of like, a bit of goalkeeper error there.
Yeah.
But yeah, this goalkeeper didn't cover himself in a lot of glory.
Which is weird because some like one soccer pundits, I think, had him in their team of the year. And I was just like, are you serious? Whereas I think the most common one was Callum Irving.
Yeah.
And then I think the second was Gazdoff, and someone else tied for the second most. But like, I know Irving's club's standing in the table.
Yeah, I mean, that will
not
play into
convincing
it as well.
It's not convincing, but his quality and his saves and I kind of hope he gets keeper of the year, even though his team was not great. His team did not, end up being great in the end and finish poorly.
No, but in the next game we'll talk about in a sec as well. There's some goalkeeping to talk about, but like,
totally.
I mean, I know Vincenzini has had some good games, but I don't know. I don't rate him that much.
No.
And I think he could have done way better on that. And it looked to be that was going to be the deciding goal, and Ottawa were going to move on to the semi-final. But then 16-year-old Shola Jimo.
Yeah.
What a strike.
Yeah.
94th minute, basically the last kick of the game. Top corner. And the scenes of joy. And you're so pleased for the young lad as well. It's tough when these young guys come in because there's so much pressure on them. Every team, every fan is wanting the next big thing and the next Alphonso Davies or the next Freddie Adu. maybe a bad example there, but you know
No,
what?
but like you're saying though too, you found the game was maybe lacking in quality, but it makes me think of the final last year, where the actual game wasn't good, but the ending was very
Oh,
intriguing
the
and
ending was good, and extra time was good, or the start of extra time was good.
yeah.
Because yeah, the ending was great, and it's 1-1 goes into extra time. Within a minute of the restart, Ottawa's got a penalty, and no question about this for me. It was a penalty. Del Campo steps up, fires it home, and you think, oh, they're going to see this out now. And then 2 minutes later, it's back level. Mo Babuli, lovely finish, good move by York. And I was hoping there was going to be a bit more after that, but I think both teams kind of didn't fully shut up shop, but they knew what was in the line, so they didn't want to make a mistake.
Yeah. And then it goes to PKs and it's Babuli again that it goes from hero to villain.
Yeah, 0-0. His penalty was saved. It was a good save, but like you've got a good
It
keeper
was
in
not a
net
great
Ingham.
penalty. It was not great. It was not a
He
great
hit it
penalty.
well, but it was at the perfect height for Ingham.
Yeah, I don't know, but did he hit it well? The placement is just it's bad.
I
Yeah,
thought he
it's
got some
bad.
good power on it. Maybe not. I don't know. I was trying to fast forward through this before the Whitecaps game started tonight. So, oh no, I'd fast forwarded through that so I could get to the Forge Cavalry game, so I could finish
Yeah.
that before the Whitecaps game tonight. That's how it played out. But yeah, so Ottawa moved through. I think they were the better team throughout. They were the better team over the season, and they do play an attractive brand. I'm just not into these club ownerships from outside, so you'll never fully have me on board with Atletico Ottawa. But yeah, I was kind of happy for them. That said, I'm going to be cheering them on in the semi-final.
Because you don't like Forge.
Well, it's not that I don't want like Forge. It's like I respect fully what Forge have done.
You just want different
I
final.
want something different.
Yeah, yeah.
I want a different final, and I think it's good for the league if it's not Cavalry Forge again.
Yeah. And
Well,
Tommy agrees. Tommy agrees with you.
Oh, it's
He
a
well, he said
surprise.
he said in the post game, like, yeah, to play Forge again would be more difficult than it would be to play when it would play to play the win like would we play Ottawa.
Yeah. So that
Or
brings
he
us.
said, I think he's basically said we know how difficult it is to play Forge in the
Oh
final.
yeah. Oh, that's just like bulletin board material for Ottawa. Oh, so we're the easy team to play.
That's what I'm saying. I think he phrased it
Yeah,
better.
hopefully. But that brings us to the last game from the CPL this weekend. It was the semi-final between first place Forged, second place Cavalry, and the way it's set up with a page playoff system, whoever won this hosted the championship game on November 9th, and whoever lost hosted next week's semi-final against Atletico Ottawa.
Hmm.
And Cavalry impressed me in this. I fast forwarded through the first hour because I was rapidly running out of time because my game today at UBC went to extra time, which cut into my time to catch up with everything before the Whitecaps. But I kept stopping it because Cavalry were just having some good chances. Forge had some good opportunities as well. It felt a very entertaining semi-final, as you'd expect from these two teams.
Yeah, I think yeah, it wasn't a classic, but in one sense it was a classic Forge Cavs game. Cavalry has now beaten them twice this season, 1-0, which is huge for them. This is the first time, of course, that Cavalry has ever beaten Forge in a postseason game. Also huge for them. Also huge for them.
And to do it in Hamilton as well just makes it
Yeah.
feel all the sweeter for them.
Totally. And then I think the big thing for me, the thing that kind of stood out and the thing I asked Tommy about after the game was the performance of Marco Carducci, who not only gets the clean sheet and keeps things tidy at the back, but also gets the assist on the goal. Right?
Yes. I mean, I loved the goal. It's Route 1.
Yeah.
I'm sure Tommy appreciated that as well. And I loved to have gone on the post game to ask him about Route 1 football. You can't beat it. I'm consistent with this. I say this in my commentaries and stuff as well. I know it's not sexy and I know it's not trendy, but I still feel it has a big place in the modern game because teams cannot defend against some of these balls forward because they're just not used to it.
Yeah.
And I think you saw the defending here from Forge. We'll come to the goalkeeping in a sec. But the long ball forward, Golden Boot winner, Toby, not Thomas.
Yeah, Toby.
Tobias Warszewski runs onto it, gets in on goal. There's an appeal. Did it hit his arm? Again,
No.
I didn't see a definitive angle that showed that it did, but Forge were certainly appealing for it. And again, a player, I'm not good with the pronunciation here. Is it Colilat? Colilay?
The keeper?
Keeper.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce his name well either.
Anyway, he had a horror show. He came out, didn't get the ball, kind of went through his legs, and then it's tucked away.
Yeah.
He was not. I've not liked him over the course of the season, I've got to say. I think
this
he's the weak link for Forge.
Well, this year, the keeper, since they've never replaced Tristan Henry. They've been playing these two young keepers. They almost like rotated them or see who could get a run. Apparently, this guy did better at the end of the year because Forge played the other guy the last two games. Is it Kalanga?
Yeah.
So he played those two games where they lost, which heavily impacted the table, of course. That's one of the things. I'm sure that's one of the things that Tommy's going to look to address this offseason. Bobby is going to look to address this offseason because it really has let them down.
Oh, it has.
And this is just another glaring example. I didn't ask him, Bobby, any questions in the post game. I was tempted to ask him about that, but I thought that it's kind of like a postseason.
Yes, it's raw.
Yeah.
And he's not wanting to throw his keeper under the bus, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was times during the game when they cut to the sideline and Bobby Smirniotis is like pacing like a caged wild animal. He looked ready to explode. And like Cavalry could have put the tie to bed. Jay Herdman had a great chance and he blasted over from a good position that he really should have put that away. And Tommy even alluded to that after the match on One Soccer in the interview I saw. Couldn't get to watch the post game because it hasn't been uploaded into the folder yet.
Well, I'm sure Forge will get around to it.
Yeah, hopefully. It was a bit annoying because I was hoping to watch that before we recorded, but great win for Cavalry. Delighted for them. They now host the championship game at Spruce Meadows. A noon kickoff Pacific time, 1 o'clock kickoff Mountain time. Not a big fan of that. I'd have liked it a little bit later, to be honest. But Spruce Meadows will host it on November the 9th. And they'll be playing Forge or Ottawa. But delighted for the Cavs fans, delighted for Tommy. And of course, there's some players in that team that we've got a lot of time and respect for as well.
Yeah, I'm so excited for them. There's a small outside chance I'm going to try and get there for it. It's not looking like it's going to happen at this moment, but if I can,
I'll definitely not, which I'm quite gutted about. But I've got work, so it's I guess better to have paid commentary work than going to a game and losing that and spending money in the process to go there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But no, for them it feels like I agree with you. I mean, for them, I think it would be cathartic to play Forge and beat them. I think for the league, you're probably right. It's probably better if Ottawa goes there, but I think and maybe I wouldn't say I would want Ottawa to win, but I think for Tommy and his side, having won the league title last year, this year winning the postseason, I think would just be like the icing kind of on the cake.
If Forge did get in it again, it would guarantee Cavalry Champions Cup football next year as well. I think it goes to the second place team in the league.
I think so, yeah, because someone asked Tommy about that post-match, said, "Oh, do you want it to be Forge? Then you're guaranteed a spot, so no matter what happens." And he's like, "No," and that's when he answered. He said, "No, not necessarily," or "No, because we know how difficult Forge is to play in a final," or something like that.
And also, you're probably going to be one game and done because you're starting your season at the start of February when you're not even ready. So,
and Tommy did talk about a bunch post game. They feel like as a club and as the players, they feel like really bad about how they could not play CONCACAF Champions League at home last year, and so they're kind of viewing this as an appreciation for their fans, people who've been there with them and supported them.
Yeah, he mentioned that in One Soccer as well.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that they're not going to be able to do it this year either.
Yeah, there was no discussion of that. I'm not sure if
Because when I
it'll be
spoke to
stuck in the same
Tommy
boat.
about it last year, and he was, oh yeah, we've got all these plans and it's all ready, and then it all obviously fell through. I mean, if it ends up on the island again, I wouldn't mind that. I'll head over hopefully for that. But yeah, I've got to say with the CPL, I know we've had little jokes and stuff in the show, and we were just talking about this before we were recording. For me, the team I've got the most interest in is Pacific, but very close to them is Cavalry, just
Mm.
because of our connection with Tommy and the players that we've known that's been there over the years. They've still got Marco and Jay Herdman there now. And Vancouver FC's third for me, and they still need to do a lot of work to win me having a lot more interest in them, I've got to say. Thought they were going to this season. I'm not talking about results, other off-pitch things, but we'll see. But Cavalry hosting it now keeps my interest very much alive now in the playoffs,
Mm.
because if they'd lost today and Forge were hosting, and then say it was an all Ontario final between Forge and whoever, I genuinely wouldn't have had a lot of interest in that. Now I'm invested because I want Cavalry to go on and win this.
That's good. I'm glad it's kept your interest, and you'll be watching, and hopefully lots of people will too, and hopefully, the fact that the finals on CBC will also
Yeah.
bring new people to it, and bring new engagement for the clubs in the league, and that the seventh season can be the best yet. I think the sixth, in many ways, was the best yet, in my opinion. The fifth was also
I
exciting.
think the fifth was better than this one,
Yeah.
just
You
so
said you
far.
said that. Yeah, you said
Yeah.
at the end of the league play, but well, yeah, actually I enjoyed parts of the fifth more than the sixth, that's for sure. But not all parts, but definitely
Yeah.
some. Um, but no, I really hope that next year will be a kind of a another significant step forward for the league in multiple ways,
Yeah, let's hope so.
on and off the pitch.
Yeah, well, next year's pivotal in the club scene in general, because we're obviously going to have a women's league now kicking off, and we'll just finish this part with a little bit of chat about the Northern Super League, because, or mainly from a Vancouver perspective, we featured Diana Matheson in the last show. If you haven't listened to that, go and listen to Diana giving some little information bits about what they've got planned for various aspects of the league. One of the things, of course, that's getting talked about is where teams are going to be playing. And there's been a lot of questions around Vancouver Rise. Very interesting. City of Burnaby council meeting this week. Vancouver Rise attended it. And want to give a huge shout out to Lauren van der Deen from Burnaby Now, who was covering the whole meeting and was tweeting out about it. And obviously, the thing that interests us the most is Vancouver Rise sent a delegation to talk to the City of Burnaby about
Hmm.
Vancouver Rise using Swangard Stadium as their permanent home. And the delegation that was sent was Rise President Sinead King and Bobby Lenarduzzi, which raised a few eyebrows.
So the play there is they're trying to bring in the like a big name of recognition or
Yeah.
whatever, but do they not understand that there's potential drawback to that same name?
Yeah, the tarnish and the stigma that goes with everything that came out of the whole Bob Barada situation. I don't know that they would be fully aware of that, to be honest. And Bob Lenarduzzi is such a name in soccer circles in Vancouver that like whatever fans think of him, whatever fans think of how all that played out, and whether he should still be involved in the Whitecaps or not. And I know for some they can't not think of that, but taking all that out of it, he's got the name recognition in the city. And for people, especially of a certain age, if you think of soccer in Vancouver, the two names that will probably spring to mind are Bobby Lenarduzzi and Carol Valentine. Still to this day.
Yeah, and obviously I know there's some people yelling at their devices saying,
Oh yeah,
they're yelling, oh, there's no, like they were cleared, he was cleared or whatever. But I think for a number of people, there's still they still have issues with what was released in reports about him, anyways. or about the organization as a whole. But it's it's just interesting that's the direction they chose to go, and it'll be interesting to see if they get what they want. And
Yeah, but we'll talk just a little bit about it just now because we'll go into a lot more detail once some more stuff's been firmed out because it's been, I forget the phrase that's used, referred. It's been referred for council to talk a bit more about this. Most of the pitch was done by Vancouver Rise president Sinead King, and they were very quick to get out how the Rise is partly owned by Christine Sinclair. And that got out very early in the presentation because, again, the name recognition, it's like, oh, Christine Sinclair's team could be playing in your city and be calling your city home. You've already named a sports centre after her. So clever in that regard, even though she's maybe not going to have a huge part to play. So Sinead King was stressing that this is a professional team and it would be bringing a professional team to the City of Burnaby, much like the pitches I think that was made to Langley for the basketball team, the Bandits, and maybe the Canucks farm team and Vancouver FC. It's like you can have professional clubs in your city, and it is a big selling point because everyone wants to be seen as a sports city. But for this to happen, there's needing to be changes at Swangard. Now, there was a plan drawn up to renovate Swangard in, I think, June 2021. The plan was to turn it into a 10,000 capacity venue. Very ambitious plans to have underground parking. So you wouldn't be really hampering the parking already in the park and the local resident parking, where a lot of folk just park. I park across the street from Swangard because it's free street parking. And you don't have to worry about trying to find a spot in the park lot as well, which can be a bit of a nightmare. So it's a legacy proposal that's been put forward. This is a long-term plan. And what the Rise are wanting is for Burnaby's capacity, currently it's about 4,500. You could get 5 into it depending on bleachers and setup and stuff. But they want the capacity initially increased to 6,000, rising up to 9,000. And they talked about that they're very comfortable that they can get that 6,000 in year one. They've sold over 1,000 season ticket deposits so far. And they feel they can turn those deposits into seats, into 6,000. And I'm reading that thinking, I remember the same thing being said about Vancouver FC. And there is a difference in turning those deposits into actual bums on seats and more than just the one bum on seat as well. It's not as easy as looking at that and going, well, that one deposit's going to buy 3 or 4 tickets. And I think Rob Friend can testify to that. The feeling was that the grass pitch met quality standards, but they needed it upgraded because of how many games were going to be played on it, not from the Rise, but for elsewhere. And the locker rooms as well are really not fit for purpose for professional. They're barely fit for purpose for semi-pro. I've been in them at TSS games and they definitely need a big revamp. And there's a lot of room under there to get work done as well. Now, councillors spoke up in favour of the proposal, saying that it was a great opportunity and it would bring liveliness to the area. But there was also concerns raised about displacing current community groups and current teams that play there. And one of them is obviously TSS. And I've obviously got a vested interest in that. But what I want to stress in this as well is if you're displacing TSS Rovers, it isn't just the men's team, which many will think about. They've got a women's team as well. And this is semi-pro. And you'd be displacing 2 teams potentially to allow one team to come in. But the Rise are stressing that they can make things work and that they don't want to see any of the current tenants like moved on either, which is ideally what you're wanting.
Yeah, there's definitely some tricky things to that. It'll be interesting to see what Burnaby decides to do. Uh, I think you're right. What you said earlier, the Christine Sinclair thing, I think is more significant than perhaps the two people doing the presenting of the proposal. Um, uh, I Yeah, I've heard from a few different places the talk of them really wanting to be in Swangard. I think it is a nice for the Whitecap organization. I think it's a nice connection to its history. I think for some of the fans they want to connect to, some of them it'll be nostalgic. Some of them who
That was
weren't there.
played up with some of the comments and the speakers as well, like the nostalgia
Yeah.
factor. Bob Lenarduzzi spoke about the 86ers getting 7,500 for their first game, where the capacity was only 4,500. I'm thinking, oh, it's a health and safety nightmare in the modern age.
What's your favorite saying, Michael? Different times.
Very different times.
But no, I think yeah, I think for them it would be very nice. It'll be interesting to see what decisions made and when it gets made, because I mean, when it comes to NSL in general, there's a lot of things that need to get done. And
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this last week, and it was basically said that the work in the stadium needs to start in December.
Mhm.
So they need a quick decision, which then makes you wonder, why has they taken it to council in October?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the NSL rolling out of their league like makes the quickness of the CPL look like it was light years ahead of them.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was very difficult for CPL. I wonder how much is going on in the back end that people don't see.
Well, we spoke
And-
about the ducks under the water last week,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it's like,
exactly.
it does feel like that a lot of decisions are having to be made in the fly because parameters or things are changing constantly
yeah.
around them.
Yeah.
And that is tough. I do not envy Diana Matheson and her team and all the owners for getting this in place, because it has to start in April now. They can't delay this. This is starting. There's no way back. And Sinead King said that they're confident they'll get 6,000 to 6,500 attendance in year one. And that is their forecast, and their aspirational goals is what the tweet thing had mentioned. And they were basing a lot of that optimism on the fact that they've got these deposits without a venue or even a roster announced. And I don't think that's the way to look at it.
Yeah, but the sense I get for the roster is not one that is going to, in and of itself, draw people in, right?
Mhm.
It
Yeah, I
doesn't-
mean, you're not talking about,
when you
Julia Grosso's coming back from the national team to play for the Rise or stuff like that.
exactly when you listen to them talk about the makeup of the roster, like I don't think that I've never heard them say there's one player, like I've never heard a name for like confirmed or rumored coming into one of these teams that is going to move the needle.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're talking about international players, but again, I
Yeah.
don't.
Well, you look at
those
who's
are
been
gonna move the
announced so
needle.
far, and it's great local talent for all these
Yes.
teams, and I'm loving that. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's for me, that's how you grow this league, is with
Well,
local players in local clubs.
And for the Rise, you assume most of their players are coming from the existing League One side.
Yeah, Whitecaps, Academy, alumni, and current players,
Exactly.
with a sprinkling of, you need more seniors, like Brianne Reid that played this year. So I mean, she is an alumni then that's moving up, folk
and
like that.
And a sprinkling of international players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the other things that they mentioned with this proposal, which is a big thing, like Swangard's not just used for soccer. It's used for many festivals over the summer, which is
True.
why TSS have to work their dates around all these festivals. But it's also a track. It's used for track and field
Mhm.
and events for that as well. So it isn't just soccer stuff. And I think that is a big concern from the city. And Sinead was asked, what happens if we say no? Where are you going? And to paraphrase, it was basically, well, we'll find a municipality that we can work with that can maybe do stuff. And it's like, you're leaving this even shorter then.
Yeah.
Burnaby say no, where the hell do you go to
Yeah.
meet what you're looking for?
Well, this is the thing. I think it's kind of understood that like UBC is the fallback position that no one wants.
Yeah, but not for 6,500 people.
Well, what's the capacity of Thunderbird? With the grass and stuff, they could
Well,
probably...
with the grass, you can get that in, but that again, like I don't know how UBC are allowed to put all those students on a grass mound. It really, from a health and safety perspective, is not safe. I mean, there's not been any accidents, so it clearly is, but it's a disaster waiting to happen, basically. Hopefully not a really, really bad one, but I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They were asked as well about how much time they would need for setup and takedown, and would that impact the things? Right. And she's saying that there's no time needed for prep.
But they're also not looking for a crazy number of dates, right, Michael? Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's 12 dates, and some of them could be midweek, she said.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure midweek women's soccer is going to be drawing the crowds that they want.
No.
A lot of the crowd's going to be young families that it's a school night.
Yeah, but then it's got to be a Saturday or Sunday night because all the young families the kids are all playing on Saturday.
Well, that's the thing as well.
Saturday
and
morning or
I can't remember if we spoke on air or off air about this. Some of the research that I've done has shown a lot of the young players, women players, don't go and watch football. They just want to play football.
Well,
You've got to win them over as well.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I mean, we'll have more chats with Sinead King. She's one of the people I'm hoping to do some big chats with. When we get into our off-season stuff, we'll have some in-depth chats, or looking to maybe chat to her, get Diana Matheson as well, once a few more things that are known. And, I mean, I'd love to see the Rise at Swangard, but not if it means TSS get pushed out of there. And I'll state that now. If that's what it takes for the Rise to go, for TSS to go, then I'm sorry, I don't want the Rise there. It's TSS's home. It has been since 2017, and they can't get pushed out. And to me, they should have the first choice of dates. I don't care that it's a professional team. You've got a new tenant coming in. There's also been rumours that the new Major League Rugby team wants to play out of there, which if they do is going to absolutely kill that turf.
Totally. And that, I think your perspective there is understandable. Makes sense.
I will stress as well, if it was any other team, not TSS Rovers, I would feel exactly the same way. It's just, it's their home stadium. And they've been there when no other teams wanted to come in. You then have to ask what that means for WFC2 as well. Can they play there? Well, they have to play at Thunderbird. I'd hate that because it's just up the road from me and I won't go probably to as many games. And we'll see. The plans are 12 home games in a season, April to November, some midweek game opportunities. They want to have as many as possible on weekends, and they want to bring in food trucks and live music and make it a big spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure a lot of the neighbours as well won't be too happy with that, or an increased capacity as well.
Yeah, like you said, there's lots of challenges or potential challenges.
So keep an eye on that. It has been referred for further discussion by council, but they are going to have to make a decision pretty soon. That's it for the club chat. We've got one more part to go. We're going to be talking national team in the next part, and something that we weren't able to bring you last week, but we are able to bring it to you this week. And we'll be back with that after this.
Hi, I'm Ali Ahmed. You're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
They look down from the clouds
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio, 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's another Britpop song. It's also a nod to Halloween, because I guess this is our Halloween episode. It is the last one before Halloween on Thursday. We always like to have some kind of horror-themed song or Halloween-themed song in it. So we'll go with that one. I mentioned I was going to play this on last week's show. It's the B-side to the song that we did feature last week, which was Supergrass's debut single, Caught by the Fuzz, released on October 14th, 1994. That's one of the B-sides from the single, which also features on their debut album, I Should Coco, that was released in 1995. That was Strange Ones. I know a place where all the strange ones go. And it's usually in the supporter section of football matches at stadiums. Let's be honest, we are a strange bunch. We're passionate. We're hardcore. Folk looking in probably do consider us as the strange ones here at football matches in North America. And that is one of my favourite Supergrass songs. So in this part, I'm going to bring you some audio that Zach and me recorded for last week's show. But as you know, last week's show was another bumper one, so we were forced to cut that out. Still a lot to talk about from what we were talking about, so I'll bring it to you now as we turn our attention to the Canadian men's national team in action this month against Panama in a friendly, an important friendly in terms of FIFA ranking points. They came away with a 2-1 win over in Toronto, and a good build-up, I think, for the CONCACAF Nations League quarterfinal that is going to be coming up next month as well. Literally hard-fought friendly. It wasn't a very friendly. 2-1 win over Panama. I thought it was a good crowd turnout in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an important win in terms of points in the FIFA rankings, seeing them clinch second in CONCACAF. And a few rusty things, a few things to work on, some concerning things, but overall, a worthwhile endeavour.
What was the actual number? I never heard the number for the attendance.
I didn't see the actual
It
finish.
just looked
It looked
encouraging.
good.
Yeah.
Which I was genuinely concerned for a friendly against Panama, what they would get out for it, but full credit to them. It looked a really, really good stadium.
I was thankful because I was able to watch most of it live, because I think it was like a 4:30 kickoff on a Tuesday night, and Tuesday evenings I'm typically working, and so my engagement on Tuesday usually starts at 6:30, so I was able to get it all in before my event kicked off. But yeah, it wasn't the easiest game. Like you said, we didn't make it the easiest game. I think a nice occasion where you have these two differently gifted and talented center forwards or strikers scoring their 30th goals for Canada, in Kyle Larin and Jonathan David, obviously.
Larin in the 44th, so right before half time, and then David right at the end with a winner.
Yeah.
Ali Ahmed getting the assist as well. Great hustle from Ali for that Kyle Larin goal. Something which he needs to find that spark for the Whitecaps, as we talked about in part one.
And who set up David? Who was the cross for David? Was it Miller?
That I can't
It was
remember.
Miller. No, it was no, I remember. It was Liam Miller.
I had to just listen to the end of it because I was driving down to BC Place.
BC Place, right? No, it was Liam Miller because
oh yes, it was, because I'd seen so much folk going, how does Miller keep getting in?
yes,
And then some
one
folk
of those,
and some crow after that.
exactly, one of those people. I know someone who's really not a huge fan of Liam Miller in the national team. So as soon as that happened, I messaged him, and he was like, "You're the third person who's messaged me about this." But I mean, good results, good battling. Yeah, there was there was a big kerfuffle at the end or near the end or whatever.
Yeah, I think just they can't help themselves. So, some of the players on both sides, I've got to say, not just Panama. I mean,
but
I think
it was good to see there was a bunch of the Canadian subs were on. It was good to see them kind of stand up and like not be reckless or lose their head or see the red mist or anything.
I think for Panama, I think I read if they had won with the US losing, Panama could have jumped over the States into third in the
Oh,
CONCACAF standing. So maybe that kind of played a little bit into it,
yeah.
which is wild to think the US would have been fourth.
But ultimately, yeah, like it's a game. It's a game Canada has to be winning,
Yeah.
right? Like we have to
And ideally a bit more comfortable than that, but yeah.
ideally. But too, I think Panama was the last time Panama played at BMO Field, the infamous day in World Cup qualifying where Davey scored that crazy winner in the 4-1 win. That was like
Think it might have been, yeah.
one of the turning points in Canadian football history, and especially World Cup qualifying for the 2022 World Cup in Doha.
Yeah, that was an epic goal.
Yeah. So I think, I think they were well, yeah, they were up for it. What else did I like about the side? I think, Max, I think was fine.
Yeah.
I think Bombito was
Well,
maybe
apart from the one little wonder that he came out in the first half and didn't get to the ball.
Oh yeah. Right. Yes.
If you're gonna come out, you either clean the man out or you get the ball.
Yeah, you text me about
You
that,
don't
right?
miss both. Yeah.
That's what you text me about,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Yeah. But Bombito, I think, was excellent. It's always great to see Derek Cornelius and the progression he's made.
Tremendous. It was nice to see Theo Bair getting on.
Yes, Theo Bair. I still thought he was going to get one at the end. I was hoping he was going to get one. But yeah, great. Yeah, who else was on at the end? There was a bunch of young kids at the end.
Which was good as well.
Yeah, who else was it? It was Bear, and who was up front with him?
Oh, let me have a look.
I can't remember now.
Got it up here.
But there was like 5 guys on at the end.
Yeah, because Poku came on and
Poku, that's it. Poku from this, the
Yeah.
guy who got transferred from Forge to Belgium second division and now gets this looking with the national team. It brings
I thought we might have seen Santiago Lopez, but we didn't.
No.
That was my only disappointment from the night, really.
Yeah,
not that was going to have cup tied him, really.
No. But the Poku thing was just nice because again, as we talk about, as we just finished talking about creating this pathway to professionalism and beyond, for the women's game in Canada, you get this glimpse, and it's not just for us, the fans watching and those who care about the sport. It's for players. You get to see this guy who made his breakthrough in the CPL, playing at one, its most dominant club, Forge. As hard as it is to say that. And then he gets a transfer to Europe, and then he gets a call into the national team, right? Like, and
it's a good league in like Belgium league's strong league.
No, but he's Belgium's second division, I think.
Okay.
But which again, that's the same. It was the same thing with Borges, right? Borges went to second division.
Yeah, although he kind of crashed and burned a bit there.
Yeah, which is weird because he was anyways, he's back at Forge, but it's just like it's a storybook thing, right? And so you hope it's not just a one-off and like that, he never sees the pitch again for Canada.
Yeah.
You hope he continues to progress at club level and earns his spot in squads like this one where Jesse Marsh was able to experiment a little bit more and yeah, make a mark. And yeah, it just gives more, like you can imagine even all the players from the CPL watching that game and being like, yeah, I played against Poku. He scored against me, or I've kicked him, or whatever.
That's the motivation, and it's like what you want by the end of next year. It sounds horrible, but it's nice. You want Jesse Marsh to have sleepless nights and have a really hard time thinking, what is my final squad going to be for the World Cup here? Because I've got 30 odd players, maybe even 40 odd players fighting for it. Yeah, how do I get it down to 23? And it's like that is the issues you want him to have. And I'm sure he wants that too.
Totally. And I
think he might also have that, because it's like that is going to be a very tough one.
I was thinking about that in terms of the keepers too, right? So obviously,
there's going to be some heartbreak there.
It feels like it would be Crépeau and St. Clair. But that third spot, they brought in some young guy recently, like young.
Well, there's the guy that's been over at Brighton.
Yeah, that guy. That's the guy I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
But then you got Serwa at Montreal. You got Pantemis at Portland. You have maybe if there's some keepers in the CPL if they have a go lights out in the next year, maybe they get that third spot. Maybe if Thomas Hassel takes over from
Thomas Hassel, Isaac Bomer, like Isaac could win
Isaac
the number
Bomer.
1 jersey, play out of
Totally.
his skin for the Whitecaps next year. It's like
There's so much to play for
Yeah.
these kids with this opportunity. Or like, and again, this is a bit myopic, but like Callum Irving, clearly the best player for Vancouver FC this year, set some more records, most penalty saves in the league in the year, most saves in a season, all these kinds of things. What if he has another crazy year next year and into 2026? I don't, again, I know this is like a homerism type thing, but
yeah, but like Marco Carducci as well. Like
exactly.
Exactly.
He was going to be the next name I was going to say, right? You could see one of those guys, but you could potentially see Jesse Marsh saying, "I'm going to bring that type of keeper as my third keeper." You know what I mean? Like it doesn't necessarily, because both St. Clair and Crépeau are kind of in that middle age, like whatever.
Well, yeah, like a little bit of an older, experienced guy.
Exactly.
Like Callum's he'll be 31, 32 come the World Cup. And I know that's far-fetched.
No, he's like 31 now, dude. He'll be like 30, 32, 33 come the World Cup.
And I know folk will be listening to this going, "Oh, come on, he's not going to come in." But it's like
him or Marco, like that kind of, yeah. But
I mean that is a position that is. I also genuinely think it's up for grabs for the number 1 as well, because you're just a bad run of form away from not being a starting keeper.
I think so, but I think Max has shown that even when maybe he hasn't been in the best form or his club has not been great and he's conceded lots of goals because maybe more so not his fault, but the play in front of him, is that when he puts on that Canada kit, he like raises his game typically. Like I'm thinking like, was that Mexico semifinal Gold Cup a couple years ago or whatever, where you're like, we kind of had no business, taking it to extra time. And he's also like, Jesse clearly wants his keepers to be like sweeper keeper. Yeah.
And ball at the feet. And he's
totally
good
style of play. Can
so good at that.
Come into this in a huge way.
But there could also be another keeper that we're not even thinking about that suddenly just breaks through and we're like, oh wow, and gets a transfer or
Exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, we won't go through all the positions, but it's like every position there's going to be some heartbreak, and a player that maybe a year ago you thought, oh, they're definitely in the World Cup squad for 2026, and then they're not.
Yeah, totally. Like, absolutely.
And
it's a really
to be a top country.
And then you mix that in with Jesse Marsh's approach to all this of like, we're the stereotypical pre-World Cup kind of, we're not going to make up the numbers.
Yeah.
Right?
We're not even just going to try and get out the group. We're going for a run.
Yeah, he's like, we want to have a go at winning this thing. And it's just it's a significant mentality shift, but obviously as players, that's the kind of thing you buy into, I think, really easy.
Yeah.
It's then going and living it out that is the hard part. But
it's been, like we've talked about this, it's been really refreshing having him. It's like, I mean, you could say some of the things he's saying, oh, that's a bit BS, but it doesn't ever come across as that. It's like, it feels with Jesse Marsh, there's no bullshit.
No, in the same way, when you listen to Tommy and Bobby in the CPL talk about the seriousness, the winning mentality of their club, the approaches that they have, it's the same thing. Like they're not joking around. Like they're dead.
And that's why they have success.
Yes, exactly.
The draw was made. Oh, actually, before we get to the draw, the last thing about the Toronto game, Fonzie criticised the pitch afterwards, saying it was not suitable for the standard of play that they want to play. And I was like, oh, I thought the BMO pitch was quite highly thought of. Has it been like torn up by the Argos?
Probably, possibly. I mean, remember, Fonzie is used to playing on a pitch that is, money is spent on that pitch to the nth degree, and it's not even always perfect. I can imagine that what's spent on BMO and the attention it gets it's on a good level. Don't get me wrong, but probably not on the level that the pitches that he's quite used to. So I wonder if a little bit of that is like, it's not quite at his standard because now his standards are so high.
Oh, maybe,
Right.
maybe.
But because he's played on that pitch lots before. But yeah, I you could see watching it that you're like, okay, yeah, it's not perfect tonight.
Yeah. So the draw was made for the CONCACAF Nations League quarterfinals, and Canada now
Canada
plays
won the draw.
Suriname.
They won the draw. They clearly won the draw, Michael.
Yes. 2 legs, November 15th and November 19th in Toronto, the day after my birthday. That could be a nice little birthday trip. But yeah, I mean, that's the team you wanted.
Is the first leg, is Suriname actually hosting the first leg in Suriname?
It's meant to be, yes.
Okay.
Well, it's well, to be honest, it says TBD right now.
Yeah. Just, do you remember back in the day when it was like we played Belize in a World Cup qualifier, and like one game was in Kingston and one was like in Montreal or something?
Oh, it's like Haiti just now, but for different reasons. They're playing
Yes.
all over the place and
Totally.
stuff. And yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that as you said, that is the one that we wanted. So that's next up. So a good, important win for the men there. The women were also in action this past week down in Spain, playing out a very good 1-1 draw against the reigning and defending World Cup champions, Spain. And it was almost even better than that. Goalless at half-time, Marie Yasmin Aladou fired Canada into a 49th minute lead, and that was how it stood until the 89th minute when Cristina Martin Prieto broke Canadian hearts with the equaliser. It was a battling performance by Canada. They did really well. Want to give full shout out and credit as well to the coaching staff there. Katie Collar did a fantastic job this week, and they kept her busy. We brought audio from her in the last match talking about her appointment, and then she did the pre-game call, she did the post-game call with Diana Matheson, and hopefully this is just the start of a lot of doors opening up at national team level for Katie. She certainly deserves it for the hard work that she's put in with the Whitecaps Girls Elite these past 3 years, and look forward to seeing what the future holds in store for Katie with the national team setup. That is it for the football chat now, but of course it's not it for the show. We will finish with this episode's Wavelength. And if you're a new listener, Wavelength is our section of the show where we play a song all about football, ideally by proper bands or recording artists, sometimes by footballers themselves, sometimes by teams themselves. But this is a band we've featured many times in the show in the last couple of years. We've been working our way through their football-themed album, All You Need Is In Love, released in 2021. This is a fun song. I thought I'd play for it all, based on a misunderstanding and some of the sexism that still exists in the game, especially over in the UK. This is Armchair Loyal. It's a man's game, apparently.
We now come to the draw for the 5th round of the Rumbelows League Cup. Assisting me with the draw are Jimmy Greaves, who will draw the home team, and Donald Trump, who will draw the away team.
When it was a man's game, and when players had a man's name. To the delight of all housewives, there were Dons, Bryans, Kens and Clives, Ronald Butcher, Terence Butcher. A tax return wouldn't worry Rodney Fern. Stanley Bowles would never listen to Foles, and Malcolm Shotton would slap you on the bottom.
I said just a minute ago, it's lazy journalism.
Now let me just get this right. Did I hear that correctly? John Terry referred to lady journalism. Is that not the most sexist thing you've ever heard?
Man's game, man's game, it's a man's game, man's game, man's game. Shoulder bar, man's game, man's game. It's a man's game, man's game, man's game. No red card, no Instagram, no man bags. A fag at half-time and no shin pads. Cherish the psyche of Robin Friday. Nigel Spackman is better than Batman. Peter Unlove would never playing gloves. Derek Mountfield left your shins peeled. Alan Ruff unabashed in the buff. And Luther Blissett is going to come visit.
Is that not the most sexist thing you've ever heard? As if lady or lazy, was it lazy? Lazy, not lady? Anyway, who cares?
Man's game, get down there and get went it's a man's game, man's game, man's game. Shoulder bars, man's game, man's game. It's a man's game, man's game, man's game. No red card. Man's game, man's game. It's a man's game, man's game, man's game. Shoulder bars, man's game, man's game. It's a man's game, man's game, man's game. No red card.
Interesting. Very interesting. Look at his face. Just look at his face. Interesting. Very interesting. Look at his face. Just look at his face. Look at his face.
Man's game, man's game. It's a man's game, man's game, man's game. Shoulder bars, man's game, man's game. It's a man's game, man's game, man's game. No red card. Man's game, man's game. It's a man's game, man's game, man's game. Shoulder bars, man's game, man's game. It's a man's game, man's game, man's game. No red card.
Times have changed a bit. I can well remember the day when players celebrated with a light ale on Saturday night.
From Birmingham, England, Armchair Loyal, it's a man's game, apparently, taken from the 2021 album All You Need Is in Love. Football, packed, 16 tracks. Go check it out on Bandcamp. You can get a physical copy or you can just download it. I have the physical copy, of course, as someone that likes to collect my CDs. Hope you enjoyed that one. That is it now for the show. Just before we go, though, Zach, let everyone know where they can find you online, anything that has caught your eyes this week, or any final thoughts.
You can find me on X very occasionally, posting there, at Zachary AM.
I mean, your conspiracy theories you've been posting has been very entertaining.
Oh, have I been hacked?
No, on your burner account.
Oh, I do not have a burner account.
You are Elon Musk, aren't you?
No. Oh my. Oh man.
Who knows what Twitter is going to be like in a month's time, 2 weeks' time, maybe, depending how this election goes.
Yeah, I'm going to be out of town. I got a work conference that week, and
I'm the night of the American election. I'm heading up to the job that I've got that weekend, or those 4 days. So I'm hopefully going to be able to take it in if I get.
It's fun. It's fun to watch all the chaos.
Yeah, I love political election night coverage.
Yeah,
just watch the stuff play out.
I have a session that evening, so I think I'll get the early numbers before I go to the session, and then I'll either leave at the end or near the end or whatever, and kind of head back to my room to watch it play out.
Yeah, I don't even know if we'll get an answer on the night. If it's going to be like maybe the BC election, we're going to have
you might not get an answer, but you'll get a picture.
Get a good idea.
Maybe some drama.
Yeah, you'll get a good idea of how many Americans are going to be applying for Canadian permanent residency applications.
No, that's all. That's one of the gags, right? I saw this last week. It's all the what are some good easy Halloween costumes? It's the person who says they're moving to a different country if the election doesn't go their way, but they never do.
Yeah, they never do. I know. We've had that in the UK and stuff as well. When I was down in Oregon this past week, just for a couple of days, I had a lovely chat with a couple outside a coffee shop from Spokane, and we were talking about the election and stuff, and they were basically saying, look, everyone that we know and just people that you meet, and he was a tattoo artist, so he meets a wide variety. He says the vast majority of America are centre. And he says, you've got the left that's gone further left. You've got the right that's gone further right. And he's like, we just want everyone to work together to get on, to make the country better. And the vast majority of people are centre. And it's like, we don't have a candidate that really represents what we're wanting. And that's tough.
Now that we're entering the AFTN political clip,
Yeah.
the only thing I'd say about that, Michael, is, and I might be wrong. This is just a feeling, so not based maybe even in reality, but it feels like that's an interesting perception that you just shared, and I think there's probably a lot of truth to that. The one thing I would say is, again, it feels like, might not be true, it feels like those smaller fringes are actually becoming larger and larger.
Yes, I would say that. Yeah.
So the majority still might be the majority in the middle, or centrist, or happy to coexist and get along and work together. But it feels like, yeah, those on the right or on the left, those that are hard left or hard right or extreme, or whatever kind of language you want to use in a non-critical way to describe those, I think that, yeah, those, with all the rhetoric and all that's happened over the last, whatever, 20 years in America, maybe 24 years in America, it feels like those are just, yeah, they're getting larger and larger. And what is created, unfortunately, a place that is where people can no longer work together, and the people can. It's like,
yeah, I don't know how you fix it either, because everyone's so far apart.
Well, yeah, because
and you're seeing it here now.
Well, yeah, and it's become, yeah, you're right. It's become a thing where it's like, you can no longer have meaningful community with people who hold different views than you.
Yes,
which is crazy to me, because there's a lot of things even where people hold views, and it's just like, okay, yeah, but I mean, without giving a specific example, situations where, like, two things can be true. It's like, yeah, let's choose an example without referencing anything in reality, but like, this is like, let's say you have to go to war to defend your nation, and yet war is also bad. Like, those two things can coexist and be true, and there's tension obviously between them, but those both. So, but what it feels like now is like these sides, these polar opposites, if you will, or whatever. They say, no, this one, like, it's no, either it's in that for example I just gave, it's like, no, war is bad, and that's the only truth that matters, or the only perspective that matters. Or it's, no, we need to go to war to defend ourselves. Yeah. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter about us killing people or whatever. And so we live in this world where there's no nuance, and then you cannot converse with people. It's like, what side are you on?
Yeah, and it was so refreshing chatting to that couple, because they were so level-headed. And it's like, I've had discussions with folk here after the election here, and like, I don't mind saying this. I looked at the NDP manifesto. There's things in that I liked. There's things in that I didn't. I looked at the Conservative manifesto. There was things in that I liked. There was things in that I didn't.
Yeah.
And that's politics. It's like,
totally.
It's very rare that you're going to have a party that meets everything that you're looking for, and it depends where you are in life. And it's all about working together. And the world would be a better place if folk were a lot more tolerant.
Yeah.
And I know we're going way off the football track here, and we don't talk politics much. I don't tweet politics much, because it's depressing as hell watching the news and reading Twitter and all the polarization. And it's like folk that I've known for a couple of years, and I'm reading things that they're putting out, and I'm like, oh wow, you believe stuff like that? And
yeah, and that's why I feel like, whether it's like this with you, or like with like some of my friends in the Fanatics or in the Voyageurs or whatever, like, because even within those communities, sometimes those places can become this hive of, you have to believe to belong. And so like you were saying before, you and I have very different worldviews. We have very different understandings of what the world is, the meaning behind all these kinds of things, but that's okay. And we can have community, we can have friendship, and those are also things that are not taboo for us to talk about.
Yes, and that is a big thing.
Yeah,
talk about it.
You could say, "Hey, this
respectfully talk about it."
Exactly. You could say, "Hey, this is how I understand this." And obviously, when it's you and I, often you do it in a very joking manner, or whatever, right? And I can do, and you're very comfortable with me doing the same thing, saying, "Hey, can I share with you my understanding of the world when it comes to this from my worldview?" Right? And you're like, "Yeah, I'm happy to hear what you say."
I love our chats.
Yeah,
we have long ones after the podcast for listeners,
and we've had them for years and years and years, different settings, outside, on Zoom, in person, in card, whatever, all over the place.
Yeah,
and they've been they're I think they're I don't know, I think they're healthy, and I think they're one of the things I appreciate about our friendship. And I learned things from you, and I think you learn things from me, even if they're not things you adopt into your life. You learn your perspectives or views.
Absolutely.
Or
and I think it makes you a better person if your circle of friends, especially your close friends, have different opinions. If you all have the same opinion about things, then you're only going down the hive thing as you're talking about.
Totally. And that's one of the things about our world is now, like everyone wants to live in an echo chamber where all they hear is the same view. And it's like, oh, everything I hear is how I feel or my perspective or whatever. And that's just not healthy. I won't go and name anything, but like one of the things I've said to you before is like, I watch or I listen to this thing that has from an individual or a programming or whatever that has an opposite worldview to me, or a different worldview than me, because I want to know what they're thinking or saying, or how they view this or how they view that, because I don't want to just be like, maybe this is a horrible characterization or character of this, but I don't want to be like, if I can use this example, I don't want to be like a Ned Flanders, where like your head's in the ground and you're like totally out of touch and you totally don't understand other people and you can only engage in one way and whatever. And so so whether it's worldview or politics or whatever, I think there's a similarity there. And you're right, the one deep sadness I think in our political discourse is it's come down to these kind of situations which are not healthy, and they don't allow society to move forward. And they also make people they build a distrust, and if you will, even sometimes a hate towards people of a different view, which does not help.
Because like when we were down the States, you'd see a car go by with a Trump sticker on, and you're like, oh, and stuff like that. But like Caitlin was listening to a podcast, and we will wrap this up soon for anyone that is still listening to this, because folk might be like, wait, what the hell have I tuned into? Am I on NPR now? Or?
This was not in the run.
No, this was definitely not in the rundown. One little gag about Elon Musk. 20 minutes later, a political discourse. But no, Caitlin was listening to a podcast, and she told me this story. I was quite appalled by this. It was a couple. It was two women, and it was the woman that was doing the podcast, and she was talking about how these new neighbours moved in, and she was neighbourly. She's from the States, and she went over and brought her stuff. Oh, welcome to the neighbourhood. You've moved in, and they became really good friends. And for a good 6 months, they were good friends. They'd see each other regularly, nearly every day. Their kids played together. They went to school together. And then one of the women that had moved in, had put out a Trump sign during the election. And the other woman just cut off everything immediately, didn't speak to her. Her daughter wasn't allowed to be friends anymore with that daughter. And no more contact ever. And I was like, that is so horrible. You've liked this person for 6 months. You've got on with them. You think they're great. Your kids get on with each other. And just because of that one thing, you're that intolerant that you're like, I want nothing to do with them, instead of having discussions. Why do you believe that? Why are you voting for that? This is why I do that. And have those discussions and still remain friends. And I think that example just summed up what's wrong with everything right now. It's like, oh no, want nothing to do with that. Cut you off totally.
Yeah, I think well, again, without I mean, you give an example, but I think the whole Trump has brought in this whole new thing to politics, or not new things, but maybe newer to American politics, where he obviously is not shy to to be a stranger to the truth.
Yes, it's populism. It's pandering.
Yeah. But he often says things that he knows are not true. To shape things, right? I mean, he specifically, a part of his approach is nothing he has ever done can be wrong, right? So then it's just
Which
like,
I believe that about myself as well.
no, but like he's just a different character in, I think, American politics, that people in general, I think, long for truth, long for honesty, long for, like we've talked about the show in the football world, like you want someone who's willing to hold their hand and say, I got that wrong, and
like Phil Neville.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is a good example from tonight. Yeah. And I'm gonna either be better, or I'm going to learn from this or grow from this or whatever. You want people that are genuinely like that. Whereas this is the exact opposite. It's like, no, I mean, even simple, stupid things like, my crowd is the biggest crowd that was ever at this gathering or whatever. And it's just like, well, everyone can objectively look at pictures from your gathering and the previous gatherings, and yours was nowhere near the biggest, or perhaps the smallest, or whatever. And it's this whole that's why to me, he's this different kind of person, that I understand why some people are so turned off by that. And I myself am repulsed by that, by many things about him, including that.
Yeah.
Like
the flip side though is, like, you drive down to the States and you go through little small towns and you see how run down they are and how they feel let down, and they're just looking for someone that will offer them change, and you can see that they get swept along with that.
Totally. And whether that's in America, him, or in other places, other people,
even here as well.
Yeah. You want someone who's going to listen to you and try and enact the change that you long to see happen in your community, or for your family or whatever. And but I think when it comes to politics, it's important what you said before, is when most people, I think, in general, look at the spectrum of people, and I know the American spectrum is smaller than usual, and it felt like the BC one was smaller than usual this last time. But I think you genuinely, typically, will find things that you maybe you can appreciate about both, right? Obviously, one will stand out to you more, or have more things that are meaningful for you. But like, whether it's like, hey, you're for fiscal responsibility, but you're also for meaningful social programs that help the community, right? Like, you can, again, that's where both those things can be good and helpful and meaningful. When you vote, you might have to vote between them, but like, it's not abnormal for people to be drawn to both of those things. But yeah, anyways, it's all that to say, it's going to be interesting to see how this thing plays out in the States, and if there are, like what happened at the following the last election, if there's discord that boils over.
Yeah, that's my big concern, like, for just traveling down there. And I love going down there. It's like, I've met so many cool folk.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, you realize, it's a different country, but it's so similar, but it's so different as well. And I genuinely can't think of bad experiences I've had going down the coast. Everyone's been so friendly. Everyone's so nice and so welcoming. And the discussion I had with this couple in Cannon Beach, it all stemmed from the woman heard my accent, and she said, I was over in Scotland. I loved it. Everyone was so friendly and nice. I was like, oh yeah, to tourists, not to each other. And they said, a bit like us here. And that's how we got into the discussion.
There you go.
We'll see how much of this makes the final edit.
Yeah, you can edit all this out. But that reminded me,
I've enjoyed this. We'll see if the listeners do. Maybe this will get our numbers up. We're branching out.
I'm scheduled to go down like a week and a half after the election.
Oh,
but not that far, but still far enough.
Yeah, I hope to go down and get some Christmas shopping and maybe taking some shows in Seattle. Well, it'll be all fine, but then it's not probably going to be to January till all hell kicks off. So we'll see. Anyway, give us a follow on Twitter, AFTN Canada, AFTN Soccer on Instagram, AFTN Canada on YouTube. We'll be back with another show soon. Probably with more soccer, probably with less politics. Who knows? Until then, as always, thanks for listening. Take care and mon the Caps.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
10 minutes left, yeah, but